Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel. My apology if there was a weird delay between the time of finishing and me starting to talk. On my screen, I was just stuck on the 000 time. But hey, here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Premier League preview in midweek. First one of the season, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken. But yeah, pretty much first Premier League preview of the season, and quite a bit of news to cover actually as well. Nothing outrageously important, but still quite a few pieces of news that we should probably give our opinions on. Before I get to Aaron, who we obviously love dearly, let me introduce a newcomer guest. We haven't seen you we haven't seen you ever before on this channel, Tom. Thank you for giving us your time. Thank you for coming on. Interestingly, actually, me and Tom don't always share the same opinions. Sometimes see Tom doing something, and I'm like, I'm not sure I fully agree with that. But what I think matters most is people that just bring their point across. And at the end of the day, I like to represent multiple views sometimes on the stream so that more people can feel like, represented, I suppose. So, Tom, we'll see today whether we'll have that again. Well, I say again, this doesn't happen that regularly. I made it sound a lot worse than it is now. But there's a few games I'm like, I'm not sure this one, but then others I do agree. So, Tom, first of all, thank you for being here. And secondly, very good run so far under Graham Potter. I nearly said Thomas Tuchel then. Hi. Under Graham Potter. But Brentford away, especially midweek, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel a little bit concerned, a little bit more worried than I was ahead of the other games. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, mate, I completely agree. I think it's a horrible, horrible game to have midweek. I was saying earlier, I think, midweek Prem games are always pretty horrible. I think we've not really turned up for them in recent years. Second midweek Prem game of the season, Laurenz. Southampton away being the first, and we know how that one ended.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, no wonder I remove that from my memory.
So yeah, I mean that was dreadful. So in the end, I mean, if history is anything to go by, I'm not particularly excited for tomorrow. But we've got a new coach. We're on 100%. I believe I saw first time we've had 4 wins in a row with 4 clean sheets since 2016. So. Really? Yeah, since December 2016 under Kante in that title.
That's crazy. That's why we always conceded no goals under Thomas Tuchel, especially when things were going really well initially at the beginning of last season. Interesting, though. Interesting, very interesting stat. Obviously, for me, I'm not sure if everyone else sees this the same, but clean sheets are a little bit of a skewed stat because obviously there are some occasions when the goalkeeper can do something about it, like Saturday, and Kepa had an absolute blind over day, of course. Sorry, Sunday. But then there's other times, well, if they just put the ball top corner, there's nothing anyone can do about it. And then, okay, it's not a clean sheet, but you didn't really do anything wrong either. So I guess it swings and roundabouts. It has come to 2 things. Number 1, obviously confidence. Number 2, every streak comes to an end. The question is, will it come to an end tomorrow? Hopefully not. But Ivan Toney, I'm sure, will try his very best to make sure of that. Aaron, let me get to you. Thank you for being here. As always, I appreciate you. How are you feeling ahead of tomorrow? Are you as confident as usual? Tom, you might not know, but Aaron is on a very good streak of predicting every result right. He's like 3-0, we win 3-0. 3-0, we win 3-0. Then, to be fair, I didn't ask him about the second leg in Milan or the second game in Milan. But I did. I swear you text me like that you said to someone 2-0. So Mystic Aaron is in the house. But we just need to know that by the end, or we need to hope that by the end of this, he does actually predict the win. Because if he doesn't, we're absolutely screwed. So, Aaron, thank you for being here. But without giving too much away already, you're going to predict the win, or you're a bit more nervous?
Well, thanks for having me, Laurenz. You put a lot of pressure on me again, so I guess I'll leave my little prediction to the end. So build up a bit of suspense. But no, I'm fairly confident tomorrow. I think with the way that we're playing currently, I think it's very difficult for me to be anything but confident when you look at the difference the last month has made and the run that we're on right now. I think it's going to take some team to stop us, and I don't think Brentford is that team. So I'm not overly worried, should I say.
Well, let's bloody hope so, and let's hope that I'm just the only weirdo here, and you are absolutely correct. Now, what we usually do, if you follow these previews for a little while, we do get into the news first. Now, I'm not sure which piece of news we should start with, so I want the one that's probably still the furthest away in the future of actually having any impact on anything and anyone. We'll find the tweet as we talk about it, but Johnathan, let me speak properly. Goldstein, who's of course kind of part of the consortium that now owns Chelsea Football Club, who is basically the guy in charge of all the property stuff and to do with the stadium redevelopment. He said in an interview that Chelsea will be, starting on working on that redevelopment within the next year, and regardless of extremely high interest rates because of, the global crisis, shall we say. we will just go ahead with everything as if nothing's happening because we're ballers like that, apparently. So I'll try to get your thoughts on that involved first. Aaron, let me start with you. Obviously, I'm sure we all remember the stadium redevelopment plans we had, announced and revealed back in 2015, which we in the end even got planning permission for. But that planning permission has since expired. So everything we want to do needs to start from scratch. Number one, Aaron, what's your perspective on the whole stadium redevelopment situation? Do you think as long as we redevelop where we are without ruining where this club is being founded and, just been at home since 1905, essentially, does that matter much to you? Does it matter to you that we keep a little element of Stamford Bridge, or do you basically, would you rather what we suggested in 2015, where we basically tore what we have now down and just built a new thing in the same place?
No, I think for me, I would much rather stay where we are at the moment, purely for the historical factor that it brings. How we've been there for as long as we have. We've had some of our best moments with Chelsea in that same stadium. It would feel weird having to go to a match day and then not be going to Stamford Bridge where it is. The nostalgia and the fact that that's literally all I've known of Chelsea is Stamford Bridge. Like, it'd feel really weird being somewhere else. So I think it'd be nicer in a way where they could still make the stadium bigger whilst being in the same place. But ultimately, I think if they're with the way they sort of have their aspirations, I know that they'll probably be thinking a lot bigger, and it might be too big for where we currently are. So it may force their hand into moving. But for me personally, even if it wasn't as big as they were planning, I'd still rather stay where we are and just maximize the amount of space that we can.
It is interesting for sure. I mean, that what I read the other week was that some sort of property around Stamford Bridge was like worth £50 million or whatever, has now gone up for sale, which Todd Bowley might get involved in. Although I have also heard that even if we do get that, yes, it gives us a little bit of extra space, but it's not really in the direction where we really need the extra space to expand drastically bigger. But Tom, what's your perspective on it? I think we're all kind of against moving. I mean, the Chelsea pitch owners won't let it happen anyway, so we should probably unrealistic to even speak about it. But what is your perspective? We're all against moving, probably, but then do you just want, a little bit like Liverpool did, who just expanded their stands, but basically kept the same stadium? Or do you want to build a new stadium, even if it's in the same place?
It's so hard, isn't it? Because everyone here sits, and while we all want more tickets, more opportunities to go to games, bigger capacity, we all don't want the disruption and the lack of capacity that kind of it will take for us to get that. And so it's really, really tough. And I mean, what you say about the accommodation around the property and accommodation around the West Stand, I believe it's the houses behind the West Stand, that would get some space, but it's not, I'm not sure it's perhaps the dimensions that we necessarily want. And then I guess there's the Millennium Hotel behind the stadium. The biggest mistake we ever made was to build that instead of actually expanding the stadium.
Well, at least we own that, though, so that is a little bit easier to do something with.
Yeah, we own it. And I don't quite, although I think we have a contract with the company that manages the hotel. So I think that is the reason why we can't just kind of bulldoze it tomorrow. I think all I would say is that I think when it comes to kind of moving, I don't think it's necessary to kind of be worried that we're going to move out of kind of the Stamford Bridge area. It won't happen. Just the kind of reaction that Abramovich got when he tried it, and the fact that we got Danny Finkelstein on the board, I just can't see it happening for a number of reasons. I think what will happen is they'll rebuild on the patch that we've got, hopefully expand it, and it will just be, hopefully we don't need to move to Wembley or wherever it is for 3 or 5 years, because I think that would just suck, really, to be honest.
Yeah, I do agree with that, absolutely. Obviously, in the 2015 plans, we would have had to move to Wembley, I think, for 4 years, and everyone kind of knows how big structure buildings go. Do you know what I mean? Like, they say 4 years, and in the end it's 5, in the end it's 6. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same with, like, they initially think it costs, like, say, 500 million. In the end, it turns out it cost $1 billion. That's just, unfortunately, just how these things go. And I would be not a fan of that either. I will say that. And that's my problem with it, because on the one hand, I think we're all a little bit aware that we do need to expand the stadium to some extent, as much as we all love the homely feel, as much as we all love what we got used to. Obviously, everyone's a little bit different in terms of how long they've been going, and that's probably why some people feel more attached than other people, which is also understandable. But to compete long term, especially while we don't have, like, basically aren't owned by a country like a PSG or a Man City or whatever, if we don't have that, we need to get our money from other places as well. And if those countries that have those bigger stadiums and have more money, then how are we supposed to compete with that long term, right? So we essentially need to redevelop and need to expand, whether that's tomorrow, whether that's in 5 years, that I'm less sure about. But it needs to happen eventually. I just hope they do it the right way. And I'm no expert on it, and I think there's also no right way that will please everyone. I think no matter what they go about it or what way they go about it, someone or a few people will always be unhappy with whatever they're going to do. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of inevitable in this situation, because as soon as they touch anything, I mean, some people even had a go at them for adding this, like, on the grey wall behind the shed or wherever it is, where they now wrote this Chelsea Football Club stuff on it, right, on the grey wall. Some people even had a go at that. I'm like, what? Like, really? Like, is it that big of a deal? Like, who cares, man? Like, they put our name there. Oh, do you know what I mean? Like, what dramatic? Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, imagine whatever they're going to do, someone will be unhappy. But I guess it needs to happen. And from my perspective, it is good that at least the whole planning process of it is going ahead and they are properly on it. And it's not like, we're going to wait around and for another 10 years, we know nothing's going to happen. And, so I'm not too displeased that they're going to go ahead with it, because they just want to know the way they're going to do it. I'll be perfectly honest. I really, really liked the 2015 plans that we had. I know not everyone did, but I quite like the idea. I don't really want like a soulless, just like toilet seats of a, modern shopping center. Sorry. Don't really fancy that. At the same time, sure, they can look nice and they can look cool, and everyone always praises like Spurs and how great the stadium is and stuff. And I do understand that as well, but I feel like every stadium that's been built in the last 20 years looks like that. In some capacity looks like that. And I'd rather, if we're going to be one of the people that build a new stadium, make it look different, because we're not like all the others, and we're certainly not like Spurs and Arsenal. So, do you know what I mean? I would like to make sure of that. Tom, you look like you want to say something there. Go on.
Yes, I wanted to add a question for you guys, because I was thinking about Tottenham, and I know I was going to mention them myself about the kind of money involved, the kind of use of it. I don't know what people would think, and add to the comments, please. And Laurenz, particularly, I want your view, Aaron, too. Would you guys accept us having a kind of multi-use of our stadium, having NFL games, having other sport games at our stadium, if it meant we got more money through it? And similarly, would you sell the naming rights if we were to rebuild? Because those are the two things that I would kind of struggle with myself. But I feel that if we build a new stadium, eventually we will probably have to address those questions at some stage.
I do think we do probably need to address them. I would say for the multi-purpose ground, I don't want NFL, but if they do boxing fights and concerts, go on. Like, as long as they don't ruin the pitch, I don't mind. But the NFL thing is like because a few of my mates lived around Wembley when I was going to London a few years ago. And once I was there was obviously the NFL in London was going on. And when you walk to Wembley, like probably the home of football alongside the Maracanã in Brazil, and then I see NFL signs hanging everywhere, I'm like, excuse yourself, what is this? Like, what is happening? Like, nah. Do you know what I mean? So, not that I have an actual problem with NFL, not at all. And I also quite like the idea that they tried to come over to Europe to make it a bit more accessible to fans from here. It's like the same thing that European football clubs do by going to preseason in the US to make the fans there, give them a chance to get involved and see things live. So I have no problem with that. I just rather it not be with Chelsea.
Yeah, I think we all say that, don't we?
Exactly. As for the naming rights, now in general, this is a very hard no for me.
Same.
But there are, I guess, probably certain exceptions if you leave Stamford Bridge and you add like some sponsor name at the end or at the beginning. Certain sponsor names I wouldn't hate that much. But if they completely took away the whole Stamford Bridge thing, I'm like, come on, get in the bin now. Do you know what I mean? Like St. James's Park at Newcastle will always and is always known as St. James's Park. No one called it Sports Direct Stadium or whatever it was called. No one called it that, right? It's still a bit shit, but if they called it, as a random thing, right? Let's say Sony Stamford Bridge. Would it make a difference? Probably not. But I still wouldn't be a fan if that makes sense. Aaron, it's a good question from Tom. What do you think about in terms of multi-purpose stadium and also naming rights? What do you think of that?
I share the same view in the sense of when they do certain sporting events, you see they'll like have the sprayings on the pitch and it just gets ruined. I hate that. I hate seeing that. So I wouldn't really want the multi-sporting thing. But as you said, like sort of boxing and stuff, that's a bit different because they're not destroying the pitch. So I wouldn't really have an issue with that and like concerts, etc. That wouldn't be too much of an issue. But the naming rights thing, absolutely not. And I think even for me personally, even if they put like a, as you said, Sony Stamford Bridge, I'd hate it. I would hate it because Stamford Bridge has been Stamford Bridge for as long as I've known, and I've always grown up calling it Stamford Bridge. So having the Sony in front of it would just seem really weird to me. I don't know. It's like such a small thing, but it would still just bug me so much. I'd hate it. So I wouldn't even do the naming rights either.
Which I do understand, and I am kind of on that side of the coin as well. It's just my local team stadium did get a little bit of a branded rename. We went from just Tivoli to Tivoli Stadion Tirol. Tirol is the country, the county we live in, but it's also like in a way a bit of a tourism brand, so that's why they named it that at the end. I'm like, so I wasn't a fan of it, but now that it's been the case for a few years, I'm like, did it really matter that much? So it's weird. Like before, I'm like, no, that's the worst thing in the world. Then once it's happened and you get used to it a little bit, it's like, But that's why I'm saying so specifically. It really depends on what it is named into and stuff. Like Newcastle are talking about Aramco. Imagine we had our stadium turn into something to do with an oil company in the current climate of the world. Like you can't be doing that. Come on now. Do you know what I mean? Like no, absolutely not. But Tom, what's your perspective on? Do you agree with myself and Aaron, or well, we don't fully agree myself and Aaron, so I guess.
Yeah, I know. I think I do. What I think's funny with the kind of naming rights side is like when the Emirates was built, everybody calls it the Emirates. Nobody calls it whatever it was meant to be called or whatever it was.
Was it supposed to be called something different?
I think they had a kind of name that was there somewhere. I can't remember. Because obviously, Arsenal fans saying this is Highbury, we love Highbury, and then they've done it. So, I mean, and it's kind of embedded now. Nobody, everyone calls it the Emirates. But as you say, with St James's Park, even when it was Sports Direct, nobody ever called it, Sports Direct.
I swear, even like on TV coverage, when they, at the beginning of games, when you see like the teams are playing each other and at the top it says the venue. I swear, even then it's still St James's Park and not Sports Direct Arena or whatever it was called again. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I feel like it always said St James's Park.
I think because of the fan backlash, they might have changed it to like Sports Direct Arena at St James's Park.
Okay.
But I mean, it's still dreadful. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
In terms of the turf, I mean, Spurs do it. Luckily, they don't have that problem with the turf.
Yeah, they have multiple
two
pitches.
One like that.
I still don't really understand how you don't have a little gap in the middle, where someone would trip up. Like, surely wherever it attaches comes together, surely it has to be a little thing where someone could just trip over. Surely, I never understand how it works, but sure.
I think I think there's kind of a layer of concrete or something between them. I don't know, but it's
no, absolutely. But if they change the pitches, right? Surely they have to split it apart and then push the other one up from underneath and then put it back together, right? Otherwise, how does it work? But maybe I should have watched more content around Spurs. And if it wasn't Spurs Stadium, I probably would have. But I don't really like watching Spurs content. I
hate it. I hate it. The thing is, I would only go to that stadium if I were either in the away end with Chelsea or if I was to go to a different sport. There's no way would I watch a Spurs game in that place. But actually, I'm quite curious to see what it's like in there. Like, I suppose
it is weird, especially that little YouTube don't send to me. That because it quite literally is the real word. I'm not saying anything dodgy. The cock that they have on top of the stadium. I'm like, why do you have a cock on top of your stadium, man? Like, come on, what are you doing? Like, it just anyway. Let's move on because otherwise we'll be stuck too long on news. But a couple of pieces of transfer news to discuss before we get into the Jorginho stuff, which I find a very interesting discussion. I guess maybe first let's discuss Leandro. Is it Leandro Trossard? Obviously, basically Graham Potter's talisman at Brighton. And we have to some extent been linked to being interested in whether that's in January or the summer. Now, what are your guys' perspectives on this? Let me start with you again, Aaron. Would you be interested in Trossard coming to Chelsea?
I think it's a difficult one because it's kind of where do I see him fitting? And as of right now, with like the squad that we have, until we don't get rid of some more, I find it difficult to think about anyone else coming in. So I think it'd be dependent upon who was to leave. But I think he's quite a good utility player in a sense of Potter knows how to play him, so he can play him more towards the front line. He can play him in that wing back role as he does with Sterling at times. So he's multifaceted. He can do a load of different things. So I don't think it's as bad as a sort of like a rotational squad player. But if it's talking about someone to come in and strengthen the starting 11, I don't think that's the answer.
No, I do kind of agree. And the only situation in which I'd see to make sense is if Pulisic leaves in January, or whenever Pulisic leaves, and you kind of replace whoever Sterling's backup is, kind of. Because I do think, well, especially at the moment with Sterling's current form, I think Pulisic should be starting ahead, at least be given a chance to start ahead of him more than just once against Wolves anyway. But yeah, the Trossard thing is a weird one for me. Before I take it to you, Tom, because I have this thing where I'm not a big fan of giving managers ex-players. Because I feel like on too many occasions has that gone wrong. And it can go wrong in two different ways. It can go wrong in either they are too harsh on them because they don't want to come across like they are doing them any favors. And then you can also have the complete other side of the coin where sometimes maybe they should be harsh, they should be dropping them, should be doing whatever. And they don't because they just know them and they get on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, that has a potential to cause a division, whether that's in the squad, in the fan base. That's just unnecessary. Like it's a new chapter for Graham Potter. Let's not dwindle with ex-players. Like you saw with Christian Pulisic and Thomas Tuchel, like everyone was like, oh, they have this relationship. And then it was here. And basically what a lot of, like Clutch, who's obviously been on the channel many times, if you guys know him from watching, said basically, well, at Dortmund, he saw him as the super sub. And that view of him never went away. So he still saw him as the super sub here, which is where being an ex-player can be a little bit of a detriment. Even with Sarri and Jorginho, you know how the fans reacted to the Jorginho stuff. There's risks to it. I'm like, do we really need it? And is Leandro Trossard good enough to be worth that risk? And that's why I'd probably say no. So I'm like, surely we can find someone of the ability of Trossard that does the same job as Trossard, and we don't have to actually take Trossard, if that makes sense. The kid, he's not 22, 23, 24. He's 28. So it's not like he's that amazing, and he's not like he has this potential to still, go ahead of him. So that's my perspective on it. But Tom, what do you think? I mean, I still think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to slate him as a player. I just don't think we should be going for that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea do.
Yeah, man, I pretty much think you've covered it. I mean, his age, his profile. I probably would only, as you say, only do it if Pulisic leaves. I don't know what the finances would be, though, because if Brighton demand any more than 30 million, I'm not touching that with absolutely anything, because as you say, I think it can just lead to a lot of kind of dynamics and whatever. It's interesting to see, I guess, with Cucurella that Potter's already got somebody who he's obviously coached very recently. As you say, though, I mean, there are instances of it being bad. There are good instances, Jose Mourinho and Ricardo Carvalho, Paulo Ferreira. So, I mean, there are good instances of it. But it's so hard because you look at the kind of shift from a kind of Brighton to a Chelsea.
Because
from a manager's
Carvalho won a Champions League with Porto. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't Brighton. It's different.
Of course. But I mean, Trossard's, I think you would say, has overperformed. Again, it's a very difficult one because then we have people saying, oh, we need to back the manager, and the problem's being manager not being backed. So if we want to back the manager, we need to get Trossard if he's the number one pick. But having said that, it's this other one where people say back the manager until they see a transfer the manager wants that they don't like, if you see what I mean. So, yeah, final bonus point. Thank you to Lee Taylor. He gave me what Arsenal Stadium was going to be called. Ashburton Grove. Nobody's ever heard of it.
Oh, dang. That I saw him say that, but I had no idea what he was talking about.
That's what it was. But I mean, nobody's ever called it that, and nobody ever will, probably.
No, nobody will. And to be fair, by now, nobody hates the name Emirates, do they? I mean, I don't know that many Arsenal fans if they do, but as a not Arsenal fan, I'm like, the Emirates is quite a cool name for a stadium. But it's just obviously...
Country,
Yeah, I guess so.
Have it the Austria after you, Laurenz.
Maybe we should do that.
Tyrol at
also,
Stamford
maybe
Bridge.
not. You know, imagine we're just bringing one Austrian player and everyone's kicking off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me quickly mention this question here by Clutch, or this statement rather. Why would we get Trossard if we're targeting Nkunku and Leao? And that is a fair point. I mean, Nkunku is either central or on the left, and Leao is on the left. So why on earth would you be going for Trossard, who's also on the left? Well, we already have Sterling and Pulisic and Cucurella and Chilwell behind him to fill the wing-back roles as well. So not really where we need players. Like, get midfielders, get some backup right-backs, and, you know, maybe some more real wingers, because that's the thing we don't have enough of. Well, which we are targeting with Leao anyway, but Trossard wasn't used as that real winger. But all of the transfer targets, and I keep on saying this, it always depends so much on what formation, what system are we going to play. Because if we're going to play this 3-4-3 and Leao is supposed to play in the front three, then I don't even think Leao has any point to it. Because that's not a real winger in this situation. It's too central, it's too crowded. That's not where wingers thrive. So then, Leao, like, save yourself that money if we're going to keep playing that. Then go for someone like Nkunku, who is more suited to that position. But if you're going to play proper wingers, buy proper wingers and use proper wingers. Do you know what I mean? But I do also want to talk about Johnathan David. I've seen a lot of interesting opinions and statements on this. A lot of people have said, like, name me a better under 22, under 23 striker other than Mbappe and Haaland than him. But also, my perspective on it is, as far as I'm aware, and I could be judging him wrong because I'm not an expert on him, but as far as I'm aware, he's very much a counter-attacking striker. We already learned with Lukaku that doesn't work. I know we have a different manager now, I understand that. But what doesn't change, no matter who the manager is that 95% of teams we play against will sit deep. And and then in all of those games against opposition that sits deep, if you have a striker that's mostly very good on the counter-attack and not technically amazing, and his passing not amazing, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? That's my perspective. I'm like, okay, I mean, if you find a way to make him work, brilliant. But I'm not sure if you can, because I feel like most teams sit too deep to make counter-attacking strikers work. That's my perspective on it. But I also do understand it is a very good striker with a very good track record over a few years. To win as a striker, to win your team the league in France, when you don't play for PSG, is always, fair play. You've got to pull that off first, even if it's Pochettino tax. Do you know what I mean? But Tom, I'll go with you first on this one. What's your thoughts on Johnathan David? Now, would you be interested in him coming to Chelsea, or do you share my views on the counter-attacking situation? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I completely share your views, actually. I mean, the thing with David is, as you say, he's a counter-attacking player. The Ligue 1 with Lille he was next to Burak Yilmaz, experienced striker, had an absolute worldie of a season at about 32, 33. To play kind of a counter-attacking, quick, getting behind striker in a 4-4-2 really isn't kind of what we're going for now. I mean, look at Werner even. He was great when he got in behind, but how often did he get in behind in England? Very, very rarely. I mean, it was games against Liverpool.
Is it worth the transfer fee and all the hassle, and then you'll hear like the media call him in a flop again? It's like bad for the brand. Is that worth it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, look, it was similar with, as I say, someone like Werner. When was he best? Against a team like Liverpool, where he could get in behind, because most teams don't do it. And it's tough, because David's a great player. Canada are getting some very good players, by the way. I mean, their football's going up and up, but I don't think he is ready for a kind of Premier League pressing team move. I mean, I know that people said it about Chouameni from Ligue 1, but I think this is not, as you say, not the right profile, not the right time.
Even with Chouameni, no one has had proof of that yet, because he's at Real Madrid now, where he doesn't face back-sitting teams every game. So we don't even know yet if people were right or not. But yeah, fair enough, Tom. Aaron, what's your perspective? And by the way, if you I don't know that much about him, that's also absolutely fair. But what is your perspective on it? Like, also, do we even need like that kind of striker? Like, I understand, obviously, Aubameyang will probably be moved on at some point, whether that's at the end of this season or the end of next. At some point, he will leave. He's 33 years old. We do also have Broja, who, in my opinion, should, if anything, be getting more game time than he is right now, because I think he's absolutely brilliant. So then, do we need to be going after someone like that? Like, especially if we're going for Nkunku, who's kind of this like second striker, 10 winger, like kind of role where I'm like, we don't even know yet where we're going to use Nkunku. So should we buy even more of these? It feels like the summer where all of a sudden we had the idea of, okay, let's just buy all of the centre backs at once now. Now it feels like, hey, we want all of the strikers at once now. I'm like, calm down, fill positions where we need them filled first, and then we talk about other things. But Aaron, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was a bit confused by it because it's like we've been linked with so many attackers already. We've already been linked with Rafael, Christopher Nkunku. So it's kind of like, if those links are as serious as they are, then where's this one coming from and kind of what direction are they looking to go in? And also, I think when you look at the kind of profile of players we already have, if you were going to try and sign somebody up front with having Broja, Aubameyang, and potentially Havertz there already, I would have thought maybe somebody a bit smaller, a bit more nimble and agile, that sort of profile and character would suit the squad more than another taller, a bit more physical type striker, which I believe he is. So it's one of them where I don't know enough about him to make like a proper judgment, but just the profile of player that I have in mind that I think he is, if I am correct, then I don't know if it's necessarily what we need based off of what we've already got. So it's a bit of a difficult one for me because I can't say that I'll watch him all the time sort of thing. I've heard that he's a good player, he's a young player, he's doing well. So it's one of those things where you get attracted to that sort of young talent and you think, oh yeah, like they could be better in a few years. If we get in there early now, then we'll have a player on our hands. But I don't know, it's difficult for me.
It is. I do agree. I mean, Major General mentioned it in the chat there. Without slating Ben Jacobs, I do like Ben Jacobs. He did report that Chelsea, Bowley is interested in Bukayo Saka from Arsenal. I mean, all well and good that he's a good player, but come on now. Like, someone tell him about how rivalries work and that this is very unlikely. Like, I mean, if it makes it work, maybe we should be talking about it. But maybe it's my inner, what's the right word to use? My inner dislike of Arsenal. I'm like, caught in this mind of like, do I actually not rate Saka that highly, or do I just not want to admit that he's good because he plays for Arsenal? I'm not really sure where I'm at, but I do think he's good, but I don't think he's that good. So I'm not really sure if it's worth, doing all this drama with Arsenal, getting him here. And if we were to get him here, it would be for stupendous money. So I'm like, Leao is miles better. Just get Leao, surely. I mean, unless you want to get both, but sure. Just quickly, Tom, before I take it to Aaron, what's your thoughts on the Saka thing? I mean, I think it will never happen anyway. Would you want it to happen if it were possible?
I saw it. It would be on a free, I believe. It would be the end of next season if he doesn't renew. Look,
okay,
we did it with Ashley Cole. We did it with Ashley Cole, and he was one of the best players in our history. So, and I think Saka is all that, and I would love to see him. I would absolutely love to see him come and play for Chelsea. I think just an absolutely brilliant player, got the tricks to unlock defenses. If we can get him for free, I wouldn't even think twice. In the words of Jose Mourinho, just buy it and don't think, if it can be done. But you're right. I mean, probably won't happen, but if we can pull this one off.
Yeah, especially now that you tell me it's on a free, which I was unaware of before. That changed it a little bit. I also just for the banner, because we could just say, it's another Ashley Cole and we're all going to laugh at Arsenal. So from that point of view, it will be quite funny, especially if Arsenal don't win anything between now and then, which, fingers crossed they don't. Aaron, your thoughts on Saka, your thoughts on how likely is even a silly question, but do you think there's even the smallest chance that this could ever happen?
No, I don't think there's any chance of it happening, and not even that. I think he's overhyped as shit, and I don't buy into it. I just think he's a good player. He's decent, but he just gets overhyped too much. And just my dislike for Arsenal. It'd be disgusting if I saw Saka in a Chelsea shirt. I don't know what I'd do. It'd be horrendous.
Fair enough. Let me just say, to be fair, he's only 21 years old and just turned 21. So even while I do agree with you to some extent, well, like I said already, that I don't think he's as good as some people make him out to be. If you're 21, you still have a long way to go. Like, mind you, Leao is 23. And, is those 2 years older. But fair enough. The last topic of news before we get into previewing the game itself, after we do the quiz, is the Jorginho situation, the Jorginho contract situation. It has been reported that the initial negotiations between Chelsea and Jorginho for a new contract, weren't successful initially, although which contract negotiations are successful from minute one? That's very unlikely. But basically, apparently Chelsea have offered him very similar terms to what he's already been on, with £120,000 per week, which, mind you, is the same contract he's been on since signing for us from Napoli, which, while at the time he was obviously, yes, he was a very good player in the Serie A, but not proven in Europe, not proven in most certainly the Premier League. And he apparently would demands, whatever word you want to use, £150,000 a week. I'll start with you, Aaron. What's your perspective on it? Do you say just give it to him? Do you think find a compromise? I don't know, at 140, 145, whatever. Do you think we shouldn't be extending it with him at all? Especially now that it looks like Kante will most likely not be extended and will probably leave. My perspective is just, okay, fair enough if one of them has to go, but don't do both at the same time. That's don't want to lose that much experience and people that are known in the squad and used to the squad. You don't want to change the whole midfield at one go. I feel like then we will say for another 2 years, we're in transition period because our midfielders are not used to each other yet. I'm like, do you know what I mean? Do it slowly but steadily. But Aaron, what's your perspective on this contract situation?
Yeah, I think you said it best in terms of we've already seen what happens when you let two people in the same position go on a free in the same window with Rudiger and Christensen, and you saw how much it took for us to try and then rebuild that defense and put a lot of your budget into just sorting out positions where you've lost players for free. So I think if one of them went, then fair enough. At this point, I'd rather it's Kante than Jorginho because the guy just can't stay fit and he's out for another 2 to 3 months anyway. So we're not even going to see him until next year. So I think if it was going to be one of the two, then I'd prefer it to be Kante. But with Jorginho, I think when we were trying to speak about it before the streaming, he said just hold off because I had a certain view. But then when you kind of put it into perspective and said that that's the same wage that he's been on since he signed from Napoli, kind of turns my head a little bit and thinks, okay, maybe giving him that extra 30 grand isn't as bad as I first thought, because my whole perception was he's not playing as much nowadays compared to what he was back in the day when he was starting almost every game. So it's kind of like, if you're not going to be starting all the time, then do you really warrant that much of a pay increase? But if the deal that he's on right now is the same one that when he first signed, then I wouldn't really have too much of an issue with giving him that extra 30 grand, keeping him on, because he's an experienced head. He's part of the squad. He knows how we play. Every manager that we've had that he's played under seems to like him and play him as well. So I think it'd be good to keep him and just have that bit of experience in the midfield, especially if we do lose Kante as well. It's good to have an experienced head in there just to kind of help out the youth. And he brings something different to the team as well that we don't have. We don't have that player who's a bit slower, but just dictates the pace of the game, sits back a little bit and allows the second midfielder to push on. Or if we play with the three, then he's the more defensive of the set. So I think it'd be good to keep hold of him.
I do agree. Like I said, I touched on it for a second already, that I don't think we should be losing Kante and Jorginho at the same time. I think that's losing too much experience all at once, especially while there is still the potential of also losing Thiago Silva, mind you, who's obviously 38, and we don't know yet for sure whether he will extend his contract. He might do. Obviously, his wife, translated by her son on Instagram, said that they have no plans of leaving, and they're very happy. But obviously, we'll have to see how the World Cup goes. Theoretically, if Brazil win the World Cup, Thiago Silva might just hang up his boots right there and then, because it's well, I've completed it, mate. Do you know what I mean? Who knows? We don't know for sure. So, and if obviously we don't know that, but there is a chance he just retires, and we can't stop him from doing that if he wants to retire. And then theoretically, to lose the leadership and experience of Thiago Silva, Jorginho, and Kante all at the same time, that's craziness to me. And to me, it's the guy got 120 after Napoli, where again, like I say, Serie A. We know with Lukaku, there's a little bit of Serie A tax attached to that for sure. I'm not giving 150. Aspi's on 150, and Aspi should be nowhere near the team. Jorginho, well, maybe not every game, but in certain games, he most certainly should. At the same time, I'm going to tell myself off, because I do also think we shouldn't use the Aspi example as justification for Jorginho's contract, because Aspi's contract shouldn't have happened the way it did. Maybe an extension is somewhat acceptable, but an extension with a pay rise in the position that Aspi was in is frankly ridiculous. So 2 wrongs don't make a right. But I don't think in Jorginho's case it would be a wrong. The guy won the Euros. The guy won the Champions League with us. One of the most important players in that season, or in that Champions League run. Finished third in the Ballon d'Or, even if it was a year ago. 150k is nothing outrageous here. I don't think anyway. I understand that everyone has their own perspectives on this, but I also want to some extent, show a little bit of, gratitude for loyalty. Like, Jorginho could have left on multiple occasions. Giving him a new contract now, it's only like the guy's, well, obviously he could leave at the end of the season for free, but even that seems to be not his main priority. He wants to stay. So, like, 30k more. We paid 20 million to get our new manager out of his old club. Really? And we're going to make some drama about 30k more? Surely. That's my perspective. Tom, what's your perspective on it?
Well, firstly, I want to avoid his agent being extremely annoying at all costs. We've had since he's joined the club every year him saying, Jorginho's going to go, Jorginho's going to go, Jorginho's going to go. So first, I'll say that whatever happens, I don't want to hear from his agent because it's just a pain up the backside. Secondly, for me, Jorginho, it's all about the coach because it depends whether Potter wants to play him and whether Potter wants him because Jorginho divides opinion. Right. You either love him or you hate him, broadly. I don't know anyone that has a very, very in-between view of Jorginho. I think you either kind of see or get his role or you just don't believe in it at all. And I mean, I have no qualms with either. I really don't mind it. But a part of me thinks that we need a change of generation in midfield. But then another part of me does think, we do need some experience. We do need someone there that can come on and kind of calm a game down, or with Asp, with Silva. It's a really, really tough one for me. And I certainly wouldn't be giving him 2 years. I think it's a horrible, horrible one. And I could easily make a pretty good argument either way. I would wait till later in the season because if I'm being honest, I don't particularly think he can play in a 4 anymore. I think it's very difficult for him to play in a 4. And in a 3, if you play him, I think it is clear that when you play a 3, you're often playing it to kind of limit Jorginho's weaknesses. So if Potter thinks that keeping him is going to hold the team back, then I will, with a loving eye and a hug and wishing him well, wish him all the best. If not, we'll keep him. We'll see how he does. And I'll support him until the day he leaves.
That is fair, yeah. It's a tough one because at the same time, Jorginho obviously didn't start the last game. Still played a back 3, so I don't think we always only play a back 3 because of him. But I do also, to some extent, agree that the back 3 helps hide certain weaknesses. I do also think that it hides some of his strengths personally, because I think when you play a back 3, the main bulk of your build-up is a tad deeper than it is in a 4, and gives him less responsibility and him less freedom to show what he's actually really good at. Like, we all know that he has certain weaknesses. He's really slow. He's really weak. We're all aware of this. But a lot of people are also aware that he's very good at certain things. And I think as much as the back 4 maybe highlights our weaknesses more, I think it also highlights some strengths more. So I'm always a little bit stuck in two minds. I'm like, because for Jorginho, I'm not fully in agreement with your 1 year thing. So I'm like, the guy's 30. Okay, turns 31 in December, sure. But with the way he plays, the guy can probably play until he's 45 and he won't make a difference because he can't exactly get any slower. He probably won't get any weaker. And everything else will, if anything, just improve because look at Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva is not in his physical prime anymore, but he reads the game so well. He's so experienced. They're still good. Yeah. So if you can use the experience, the reading of the game so well, and you already are not used to being good with, like, from a physical point of view, then you're not really going to get worse. So I'm like, from my perspective, is give him 2 years, either sell him after 1 year, because then you can make a little bit of money back on that, because you'll find someone, Napoli will pay us 20 odd million, or Juve will pay us 20 odd million if we want to sell him after a year, or even 15. Like, it's better than nothing, like we did for Rudiger and Christensen. Let's not lie to ourselves. That's my perspective on it. And if he theoretically happens to have an absolutely incredible 2 years, we can even extend another time then. And if not, he just leaves. That's my perspective on it. But I also understand that not everyone's going to share that view. Do either of you want to add anything on top of that, or shall we move on?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. All right, then. Big shout out to our wonderful friend Bertram, who, as always, has prepared a little quiz for us ahead of Brentford versus Chelsea to get us in the mood about talking about Brentford and Chelsea rather than just news, right? Again, I have not seen the questions before, so I am as unaware as Tom and Aaron are. I will only click through the slides, and that's when I will try to figure out what the question means, because sometimes they are, well, a little bit unsure what exactly is meant. But hey, we try our best, and we'll see how we get on. All right. Let's start off with question number 1. The Bees are comfortably a West London outfit. Question is, which of the following grounds are located closest to the Beehive, their stadium? Loftus Road. Is it? Yeah, it is Loftus Road. Craven Cottage, Stamford Bridge, or Wembley? Wembley's interesting to put down here. I mean, Aaron might be best suited. You live outside of London, don't you, Tom?
No. So I live right near Loftus Road now.
Oh, really?
I live about 10 minutes from Loftus Road.
I would expect you to know this then. Go on, Tom.
my gut would probably be Loftus Road, then Wembley, then Craven and Stamford Bridge are virtually the same.
Yeah.
Then Stamford Bridge, then Craven Cottage. But because I mean, what if Loftus Road is White City, Wembley is obviously Wembley, Stamford Bridge and Craven Cottage in the Fulham area. But then Brentford is between kind of where I am in Ealing and where kind of Richmond, where right down the end of where. My gut would still probably be Loftus Road though.
All right. Fair enough. Aaron, what's your thoughts? Would you go for the same? Would you go for something different?
Yeah, I was going to go with the same, actually. Loftus Road.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest. I know what Craven Cottage is. I know what Stamford Bridge is. I have a very good idea of that. But because when I got into Premier League football many years ago, the Beehive wasn't in the Premier League. So, at the time, it wasn't something that I looked at. Okay, where are all the Premier League stadiums? Because they've since been promoted, I didn't actually check I know where Brentford roughly is, but I don't know exactly where the stadium is. So if I'm being perfectly honest, I can only guess. Now, they are in West London, so I would have not guessed Wembley because, well, Wembley's not in West London. So, and I never heard that it's like particularly close to Stamford Bridge, and Craven Cottage is so close. So I'm like that, then it would both be mentioned. So that's why I'd probably also guess Loftus Road. I mean, after your guys' explanation, much easier for me to do so. But even initially, I probably would have guessed it. And we are all correct. I will give Tom and Aaron more points than me here, just, because
I didn't do any of the explanation. That's all, Tom.
No, well, fair play. But, maybe I can't just throw you under the bus. Maybe you knew already before Tom said it. So, But yeah, Loftus Road is only located 2.75 miles away from the centre circle at the G-Tech Stadium. Fair enough. So is it not the Beehive? Is it the G-Tech Stadium? All right. Sorry?
It's very new, though. It's very new, the stadium, Laurenz. So if you did look up where Brentford played when you first got into the Premier League, it wouldn't have been the same stadium.
They moved even locations.
It was probably
I didn't even know that. There you go. Fair enough. All right. Question number 2. The Queen, or in this case, King, B, is Matthew Benham. He acquired the club in 2012 along with the Bees. He also owns a Danish club. By the way, Tom, in case you didn't know, Bertram, the guy who makes these quizzes, is Danish, so that's why we got here, or that's how we got it. A club who's also beaten Manchester United. Which? Good luck, boys. Well, I know that one of these has beaten Man United. The question is just, are they the only one of these 4 that have beaten Man United? Because if they are, I know the answer. But if multiple of them have beaten Man United, then how the flip am I supposed to know?
And I have one answer.
I let Aaron go first, just so we all go first once, so we don't have to take and steal our thunder. Aaron, do you know by any chance, or if you have to guess, which would be your guess?
I don't actually know, but I'm just gonna throw out another.
You're gonna throw out what? I'm not sure if your microphone broke or if I can't hear you anymore, but I certainly can't hear you anymore. So maybe you need to fix that. Tom, I'll go to you. I think he just didn't say anything yet. So you seemed like you had an answer in mind then. What were you thinking?
Well, it's funny because until I saw that Man United clue, I'd have had one answer in my head. And then after I saw the Man United clue, I had a completely different answer. And again, so I would have said Aalborg if I hadn't heard the United clue, but I'm pretty certain it's Midtjylland that beat Man United. I have Swedish roots in my family, so definitely not pro-Danish football in Europe. But when they beat Man United, they're all right. So, yeah, I mean, I would go for Midtjylland myself.
Yeah, fair. And to be honest, I would as well, because I do remember them beating Man United. It's just like I say, the question is, did anyone else beat Man United that I'm unaware of? But I don't think so. So I guess here we are. Aaron, I didn't hear your answer because I'm not sure if it cut off or what happened, but what is your pick? Oh, still can't hear you. Don't know what the microphone situation is. Yeah. I'm sure you will be able to figure that out. I would just guess that you guessed Aalborg. If that's wrong, unlucky, mate. The pesky Benham acquired FC Midtjylland in 2014, and unfortunately turning them into quite a force in Denmark. Players also usually swap between his two clubs. Yeah, see, I did actually hear about this. That they have something going on, like players going back and forth and stuff. I'm not sure if he's still there, but didn't Michael Essien go to do some sort of role at Midtjylland? I'm pretty sure he did. Do you know that by any chance, Tom?
I'll have a little Google, but I
couldn't. Pretty sure Michael Essien was there as some sort of coach.
They've done well in Europe too, Midtjylland, as it was said. So he's coach of Nordsjælland, the team who we played the year after we won the Champions League, the first time.
Really?
We bashed them both times, but we couldn't beat Shakhtar or Juventus. So, yeah,
Nordsjælland, Midtjylland. Come on, I'll be excused.
I think
one means north and the other one means middle, but sure.
Middle, yeah, exactly.
There you go. Aaron, shall we try again? Let's see if your mic works. Tell me something. Nope. Don't know what's happening.
Hello. Is it?
Have you tried?
Working
yes, now I hear you. There you are. We will give you a chance. What would you have said, even if you do know now the answer? Know the answer by now. And are you back off again? What's happening? Is your aux plug broken? What's happening? You're on so many streams and it always works. So I don't understand what's happening, but I'm sure he'll figure it out very, very soon. In the meantime, we'll go on to the next question. Everyone loves the Danish, both the pasty and the people. Well, Tom doesn't, especially Brentford. The Bees seemingly have a sweet tooth, as players like Markond, Eriksson, and more have played in West London. Okay, so you're basically just naming Danish players. Okay. Question is, how many Danish players do they currently boast, not counting loans? Well, mate, I have not a flipping clue. I know they have one centre-back who's Danish. I just know him from FIFA. Otherwise, I'm not as sure. I mean, Tom, do you have any idea?
I'm trying to kind of go through their players. I mean, I know they brought in Dansgaard. They've got some defenders. They have, I think, a goalkeeper from Denmark, maybe. But the fact that I'm only sort of counting, and I'm struggling to even get to 6 off the top of my head. And I'm not saying that's probably me that's not that smart, right? When it comes to this, right? I'm thinking like Janelt's another one. There are some, but for me it would have to be 6 because there aren't that many. There aren't that many. It's not like Wolves where every blooming player is from Portugal, is it?
Yeah, but at the same time, the fact that he gave us the options of 6, 8, 9, and 10 is a little bit crazy. So maybe it is almost like Wolves. I don't know. Simply because I just don't know equally as much as Tom doesn't know. And I want to be different just to not make it as boring. I'll go 8, but it's a purely a guess and I have no idea. Aaron, shall we try one more time? Can I hear you?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you.
God.
Wonderful stuff. Okay. What's your guess for this one? And please finally tell me what were you going to say for the other one before it cut out?
I was going to say Midtjylland before my mic gave way. I was in the middle of saying it. And then you lot started spinning.
You did, of course.
I swear to God, you lot started spinning as I was saying it. So I don't know what the hell happened. But I was going to say Midtjylland because it's the only one there that I knew from like the European competitions.
Fair dues. All right. What do you want to guess for this one?
I'm trying to go through it in my head. I know they've got Norgard, Ruoslev. Zanka at the back, who used to play for another Prem team. They've got
Undisputed.
Damsgaard, Jensen.
Is Jensen not Swedish?
No, Jensen's
No.
Dutch. I think it was
Pontus
Tom
Jansson was Swedish.
Oh, Jansson, that's him. There you
Yeah. Tom mentioned Janelt, but he's German, not Danish.
Oh, Janel German. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm going to say 6 because I can only think of 5 in my head.
go. Okay. Let's see if you boys get it right then, or if I had a very lucky guess. 6 Danes, you got it spot on. Fair play, fair play. 6 Danes currently play for Brentford, and 2 are out on loan. So he didn't mean loanies that are there from other clubs. He meant loanies that they've loaned out. Okay. Jorgensen, Damsgaard, Roslev, not sure how it's pronounced, Sorensen, Jensen, and Norgard. Fair play. Fair flipping play. All right, next question. Let's see if we have the Danish involved again or not. Move slides, please. Which Chelsea icon scored their final Chelsea goal against Brentford?
Hold on, sorry,
Ivanovic?
Laurenz. Can I just put Bertram on fraud watch because Sorensen's out on loan in League One?
Ooh.
That's why I couldn't get to 6.
Fraud watch is live.
That's why I couldn't get to 6 because he's out on loan.
Okay.
That's
So it was only so because you could only think of 5. Couldn't you also only think of 5, Tom? Or were you on 4?
I know I wasn't. I was struggling to get 6.
You might have had the wrong names, but if you're on 5, you're on 5. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
I actually got 5 that were actually there, so I mean, I'm just saying that should be like an extra point.
I reckon we'll write down your imaginary extra point because we don't.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, we will be fair. All right then. Which Chelsea icon scored their final Chelsea goal against Brentford? Ivanovic, Cesc Fabregas, Antonio Rudiger, or Gary Cahill? Feel a bit bad for Ivanovic, and he only got his surname. So to be complete, Branislav Ivanovic. I have not a clue in the world, which is weird to me. No, I do. That's a lie. I know the answer, actually. I do know the answer. Do you guys know the answer? You might not. Aaron, before your microphone cuts out, let's give you the chance to say, well, do you know?
I don't, because I feel like Rudiger scored the screamer against Brentford, but then he scored against Madrid in the Champions League, and I can't remember which was before. So I'm a bit confused there.
Oh, yeah. See, because in my head, I was like, well, it's Rudiger. He scored that screamer, didn't he?
Yeah, but that's what's
now that you raise a point, maybe that just wasn't his last goal. Now you've done it. Yeah,
that's because I can't remember the timeline. I'm trying to think of when the ownership thing was happening, and they were like, they could come in before this point, and then all of that shit. They were meant to come in for the Brentford game, and he scored then. But then he scored for Madrid, in Madrid, which was I don't know. I'm gonna just say Rudiger because I'm confused.
Okay. Now, how anyone's supposed to know where against who Fabregas scored his last goal, or Gary Cahill for that matter, or Ivanovic for that matter? That is beyond me. How anyone's supposed to know that? Unless I'm missing something crazy. But Tom, do you have a shout, or do you just think it's Rudiger?
No. So I was the opposite. I low-key kind of forgot about that Rudiger goal. A little bit. It was a terrible day, right? I will confess, I had my view on the chat completely by accident. I had it there. The chat saying Rudiger. I am going to say I actually think Aaron's logic was right. The reason I say that is, right, when I first saw the question, I remember that cup run under Kante 16-17, right? Mm-hmm. I remember Ivanovic was sold that January, but we had a cup game just before he left. And Ivanovic scored on what was his last game for the club. And he was, for some reason, doing his thing, going into centre forward.
Was that against Brentford, was it?
So we played Brentford in that run, definitely.
Okay.
And my gut is telling me that it's Branislav Ivanovic because I can picture the goal in my head. He puts it in the bottom corner. He's in centre forward. It's his last game. He's messing about. And I agree with Aaron that Rudiger just didn't jump out at me. So I'm gonna live and die by Branislav Ivanovic.
Fair dues. I rate the knowledge. Honestly, I can't remember that we played Brentford in any cup run. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, my brain's letting me down these days. Memory used to be better. I can't lie. Cesc Fabregas, Gary Cahill. I can't see. Sometimes I have random memories made. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that goal. I have no idea who. I can't remember the game Fabregas played his last game in either. Obviously, he didn't score in that. I'm pretty sure the only goal that's popping in my mind for Cesc is that QPR goal, which wasn't even anywhere near his last game.
No, I was there for Cesk's last game. It was Forest in the cup. Again, because I was there, I remember it.
Yeah, there you go. But he didn't score that game, did he?
I'm pretty sure it was. One, it wasn't Brentford, and no, he didn't. I'm pretty sure he did. He was crying when he came off.
I'll make this easier for you, Laurenz. Fabregas' last goal, I believe, was against Derby.
Was it?
I believe.
When Lampard was Derby manager?
I don't know if it was when Lampard was Derby manager, but I believe it was Derby.
I think it must have been, yeah.
Yeah, it must have been. We didn't play Derby that often. What else would it have been? Interesting. Now, obviously, I'm going last here, so I have a large benefit of the fact that Tom gave me the explanation. So I will just piggyback Tom and just jump along on that Branislav Ivanovic thing. And if it's wrong, we will scrutinize Tom for the rest of time.
Well, there's no need to scrutinize him because it was a 4-0 win against Brentford and Ivanovic scored the third goal.
Yes.
There you go. There
you go.
The chat was Tom. Fair play. That is very good.
The chat was begging me to say Rudiger, and I was like, no. I remember it. Yes.
Ooh. Fair play. As Bertram says, although Rudiger scored his last Premier League goal against Brentford, he did score 10 days later at the Bernabeu. But also, to be fair from Aaron, good knowledge, because I was literally on the verge of just saying Rudiger because I remembered, obviously, that goal. Not remembering that he scored against Madrid, which I do remember, but not thinking that was maybe after. But here we are.
I just couldn't remember the timeline.
You do remember the timeline. There you go. All right, new thing. See, I didn't even know that was going to be a new thing. All right. Guess the golden goal scorer. Here I pick a memorable Chelsea game, and you lot have to guess the golden goal scorer that I've coloured out. All right, I'm excited. Go on you, Bertram. All right. Everton 2, Chelsea 3. Goal scorers Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba. Who scored the first goal that day? Flipping heck, how am I supposed to remember that? Bloody Iron Robin still played for us then. See, one other thing, Tom, you might not know about Bertram. Bertram somehow has a gift that he knows every single result and goal scorer since 16-17. And seemingly, maybe even further back on some occasions. Okay, but we can actually look on the screen. Can we see the number?
I think, is that not the Lampard goal?
It would look like it, but I have a feeling that I'm not sure if you guys can see it as big as I can. Obviously, I have it on full screen, so maybe I'm getting a little bit of a benefit here. But I feel like, and I'll help you out, I feel like I'm reading a B here and a 13 here. The question is, and so that's making me think Ballack. But
that was my guess.
But were Ballack and Robin at Chelsea at the same time? Did Robin not leave before we signed Ballack?
One season, I think.
What year did we sign Ballack? I can't remember. 2006?
When was Ballack signed?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2006, I believe.
There you go. And did Robin leave only in 2007, yeah?
Robin left 2007 because he was in that cup, the team that won the cup.
True.
The two cups.
He was.
I would have said Ballack even if you hadn't.
Fair. But I also think the boots, they're Ballack boots.
Yeah. Because the Lampard and the Drogba goals, I'll never forget the rest of my life. I remember being
me neither, because those were screamers.
Screaming, But I'm pretty sure. I'm confident. I'm more confident in this one only because the last one I had the chat telling me to say a different answer.
Fair play. All right then. Aaron, would you have gone for Ballack as well without me saying anything? Do you now go for Ballack, or what would you go for now?
No, I know for a fact that it was Michael Ballack because I remember the game because of the two screamers. Ballack scored a free kick.
Free kick, yeah. It does look like he's taking a free kick, to be fair.
Yeah, he scored a free kick.
Like Tom, I remember the other two goals, but I had no memory of that Ballack goal, I will say. Unfortunately, Bertram, you tried your hardest with covering out anything important to see, but I felt like I did see a B and a 13 there, which did help me out. So I got lucky, but to be fair, the boys got it regardless. Now, just because this was a new thing, I assume this was the last question, but let's see. He unhighlighted it. There you go. Michael Ballack was the correct answer. Fair play to us. Mostly fair play to Aaron and Tom. But, fair play to us. Oh, we do get another question. Last season, Mendy stunned the world by getting a stunning man-of-the-match performance against the Bees. But how many saves did he make? Mind you, funnily enough, it was actually the very same date as Kepa's outstanding man-of-the-match goalkeeping performance just past Sunday against Aston Villa, which is a weird coincidence. But there you go. How many saves did he make? I'm pretty sure Kepa made 7 on the weekend. So now that makes it even more interesting. Did Mendy make more or did Mendy make less? Something in my memory is telling me 10, but that could be completely off the mark because 10 does seem a little bit outrageous. That seems like a FIFA thing. That's why only on FIFA goalies make 10 saves a game. But Aaron, I'll let you have a think. What do you reckon?
I have no idea, so I'm just gonna have to guess. I'm just gonna say 6.
Okay.
So I think the others just sound a bit too outlandish.
It is true. But obviously, we all remember how good of a performance he had, but I can't remember how many saves he had. Tom, do you have anything in mind?
Yeah, completely go-to performance. It would be 8 for me. But again, that's a complete guess. And it would be, beginner's luck, I'm sure, if I get this one right.
Fair enough. Let's check. It was 6. Maybe I should have just gone for 6 because I feel like I did hear that this was the most saves of anyone since God knows how long from Kepa on the weekend. But I was like, maybe someone just posted some fake stats on Twitter again. Unfortunately, it happens too often, do you know what I mean? But there you go. You would think he made more, but the level of those saves was outstanding. And to be fair, it was. And I love the fact that he put Bentley's head on the beekeeper here. You're a funny guy, Bertram. I do appreciate you. There you go. And the last question of today, as Bertram did inform us in the chat. Fly like a butterfly, sting like a bee. As the famous quote goes, question is that true? Out of 12 fixtures, how many wins did the Bees pick up against the top 6 teams last season? Well, they beat us once.
Beat Arsenal opening day.
Yeah, good memory. Did they beat anyone else?
United. Did they beat United?
I mean, they beat them 4-0 this season.
Yeah, maybe they didn't last season. Maybe it was 2 draws.
I feel like they definitely had a couple of draws in there, but I'm not sure how many times they actually won.
They didn't beat City because I know City only lost 3 times last year.
Yeah, I don't think they beat Liverpool.
I don't think they beat Paul either.
I think it's just Arsenal and Chelsea that they beat.
What about Spurs?
Yeah, Spurs.
I don't think they did. Off the top of my head, I can't recall.
No, I don't. It's nothing's popping in my mind, so I'm going to say 2. Boys, Aaron, what are you going to go with?
Yeah, 2. They're the only 2 I can remember is the Arsenal opening day and then against Chelsea.
Fair dues. Tom, are you going to go different or are you going to go with the 2 as well?
So I'm in such a bad because I almost want to say one more that I haven't thought of, but I actually, now we've spoken through it, I think I am going to go with 2 actually.
Fair play.
Why are people saying 3 in the chat? Because you're going to make me want to change it. I hate you.
Ooh, a couple. Yeah.
Do you know what I am? I think that they beat one more team, and it was either
might have been United last season as well, for all I know. I mean, someone in the chat said it, but I just don't know if it's true. All right, let's see then. 2. It was only 2. Sorry, Tom. Unfortunately, it was 2. Arsenal on match day 1, and us in Chelsea in April. In that very game, then Antonio Rudiger scored that screamer in. What a weird day that was. Finally, after God knows how many dozens of tries, Rudiger puts it top corner. And then we lose 4-1. I still can't quite fathom that happened. But here we are. Only mammal on earth that can't jump are elephants. We hope Chelsea will jump the table with the win tomorrow. Bertrand, you're so weird and I love it. The only mammal on earth that can't jump are elephants. Did anyone know that fact? I didn't. But fair enough. I love it. I'm a huge fan. All right then, boys. Let's get into talking about Brentford versus Chelsea in more actuality on the pitch. The first thing I do want to discuss is what's also on the thumbnail and in the title. Graham Potter's comments on Mason Mount. Basically, he was just, he said that he was made aware of a mix of opinions of Mount. He didn't specify within our fan base, but I did love the quote. He just said, he just finds it very strange. I'm like, yeah, that's going on all the titles and thumbnails. Questioning Mason Mount is strange. And to be honest, it quite frankly is. And I want to comment on the tweet that I saw today. And shout out to Johnathan Mann. he's been on the channel before. I'm a big fan of his. But he did put out a tweet which I personally disagreed with, because he put it out there in terms of that Mason is doing good now, but can he do it for a 3-month period and stuff? Like, can he be that good for a 3-month period? And my response to it was, what is this comparison? Even Eden Hazard had maybe 3 seasons at Chelsea. Mind you, at Lille, of course, different. But at Chelsea, maybe 3 of all of his seasons where he was genuinely at the very highest level for 3 months or more. Even Eden Hazard. And I think we're all very much aware that Eden Hazard is miles better than Mason Mount. Even Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, they aren't amazing every game. Now, better than Mason Mount, of course, but they aren't perfect every game. So this whole he needs to do it for 3 months straight and you can't have a bad performance in there, that is, number one, unrealistic. Number two, why do you make it so just that having that instinct in terms of he needs to be that good for that long and all the time? Just appreciate that we have one of our best players from our own academy. Well, 2 of our best players from our own academy. Just appreciate that fact. Yes, they are not as good as De Bruyne, and yes, they're not as good as Eden Hazard, but that's not their fault. That is we need to keep them to a little bit more of a realistic standard. They're still some of probably the 2 most consistently best players in the Chelsea squad. I mean, no one's really having to go at Reece James anyway. But in terms of Mason Mount, so for me, that's just the only perspective that I have. I'm like, Mount is great. He might not be as good as Salah, and Salah this season hasn't been great anyway. But he might not be as good as De Bruyne or Hazard, but still good. You can be good without being as good as those guys. That's my perspective. Tom, your camera is frozen for me. I'm not sure if that is because something happened or if just your camera froze and you can still hear me. So if you're still here, say something. Otherwise, you may have to disconnect and reconnect again if you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Seemingly that's what you're doing. So Aaron, let me get to you. What's your perspective on the Mason Mount comments? Number one, the comments from Graham Potter, who just says he finds it weird that some people don't think he's great, because Graham Potter says he's pretty much good at everything. He works like an absolute horse. He's good at finding spaces. He scores goals and he gets assists. Not very much, not at the start of the season, but that was a month and a half or whatever. And people now base his entire ability on a month and a half after he was highest assister and highest goal scorer in the squad last season. Really? Is that where you need to find your criticism from? But what's your perspective, Aaron?
Yeah, I do think it is quite stupid when you have someone who's been your player of the season 2 years in a row. Last year, got the most goals and assists for the club as well. To then sort of, yes, he had a slow start to the season, but to then suddenly jump on his back and that sort of thing, and just overly criticise when it took him a little while, but he's got into his rhythm. He's playing really well recently, getting the goals at the weekend to get us the win, getting assists midweek in the Champions League. He's doing what he needs to do now. It might have taken him a bit of time, but he's got there in the end. So the overly criticising him doesn't do anything, because he's consistently performed for us. He might have games where he's not as prolific, or he might go under the radar more, but more often than not, Mason Mount puts in a performance. And one thing with him, he's going to leave everything out there on that pitch. And the guy wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a Cobham graduate. He's Chelsea through and through. So the players who come from the academy, they tend to put a lot into it, and they have the passion and that sort of thing. And you can see it within him as well. So I think it is a bit outrageous for people to overly criticise him and not give him his plaudits when he's done more than enough to deserve it over the last couple of seasons. And I was scrolling through Twitter just now while he was speaking, and I actually came across the tweet that he was talking about, and I don't agree with what that person said either, because he said the reason I've been critical of Mount is because he has the quality but hasn't shown the consistency yet. He's won Player of the Season 2 years in a row for Chelsea, and he's been putting up the numbers. And they did the comparison with Lampard at the same age and similar games or whatever it was, and he's actually got more goal contributions than Lampard at this point, I think it is. So,
and in a worse team, well, no, maybe not in a worse team, but not that different. Lampard's first few years at Chelsea, we were not quite there to win the league, but we weren't that far off. We're arguably further off these days than we were at the time. So,
and then you also have to think about the caliber of player that they play with as well. We have a good team now, but it's still questionable as to whether it's better than what Lampard was dealing with when he first started. So it's very contentious topic area and up for debate. But yeah, I think it is. I think it's really harsh on Mason Mount. The guy does give his all, and you're starting to see it now. He's taken a little while to get into the swing of things, but he's putting up the numbers now. I don't know exactly how many goals and assists it is in the last since his first goal contribution this season. I don't know how many he's got, but I think he's got a couple of goals and like 3 assists or something.
He's got a fair
yeah,
few
I think
now.
he's got 2 goals and 3 or 4 assists or something like that. So he's not doing too badly at all.
No, he isn't. And before I take it to Tom, I do want to react to this comment by Laborde because you make a good point. I do agree with you. When he wasn't playing well at the start of the season, it's absolutely fine to criticize him. Obviously, I always think the tone of word and the choice of words makes a bit of a difference. You can criticize someone for playing badly without trying to paint them as the worst footballer that's ever graced earth, because he's clearly not that, even when he wasn't playing well. But I do agree. At the start of the season, this criticism was warranted. But now he is currently playing well. So there's no need to sit there. But a month ago, he was shit. Yeah, but now is not a month ago. Now is now. Criticize Raheem Sterling, who's been shit for 2 months straight. Criticize him instead. If you really want to criticize someone, or just be happy in life and don't criticize anyone too harshly, because why? Just be happier. Be just grateful of life. I'm waffling now. But Tom, what is your perspective on certain criticism that Mason Mount has received? And also your camera might be frozen again. Not sure. Well, your camera is sadly frozen again. You can try to speak, see if I can hear you. Give it a go. Well, that seems like I can't hear you, unfortunately. Tom, maybe you'll need to try it again to reconnect, because it did work initially after you reconnected. Maybe StreamYard is being weird today. I hope you can still hear me. Otherwise, I will inform you in the private chat. In the meantime, Aaron, I'll ask you a different question of what Graham Potter was talking about in the press conference today. And we was basically talking about Thiago Silva. Oh, Tom, I can see your face move again. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, no, I can. Tom, I can hear you. Are you here? Can you hear me as well? You're muted, but I can see your face move.
I'm on mute. Do that work so much. My internet's gone pony too. Right. Mason Mount. He comes under, and again, I'm going to repeat what Laborde said, because again, I feel I need to, given the people that are out to get Mason Mount. He was on a poor run of form at the start of the season, and he deserved criticism. Everyone on this video, I'm sure, did criticize him. Having said that, the lad is absolutely outstanding as a player. And I have nothing but resentment towards the people who want to criticize him at every opportunity and are out to get him and say he's a bad player. Almost, I think, because he's from Cobham, and that our fans are bigging him up because he's one of our own. So, yes, I agree. I think Graham Potter's spot on. It says something that every manager from both England, Chelsea, everywhere has loved him, played him all the time. And, people don't forget under Lampard, he was the one that was, that was playing well when the rest of the team wasn't. So completely agree with you guys. Anyone that just is out to get Mason Mount is just, just very, very silly in my opinion. And I've not got that much more to say, to be honest.
Frankly, mate, I wouldn't have put it any different, to be honest. It is just very silly. Again, he's not as good as Hazard or De Bruyne. Most players aren't. I'm not trying to say that. Most players aren't as good as them. That's kind of what happens. But not everyone is as talented as De Bruyne and flipping Eden Hazard. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't hold everyone to quite that standard. That's a bit harsh on people, I think. But because we've been here for quite a while already, let's get into this team and talk about what we would like to see tomorrow. And we start in goal. And I'll start with you again, Tom. Well,
yes.
Obviously on current form, you'd have to say Kepa. But we did also see in that little quiz the performance of Mendy against Brentford last year. So any small shout in you that's like, because it's Brentford, play Mendy, or do you stick with Kepa?
I was a bit apart. First away day, saw those saves from a side-on view. Unbelievable. Kepa Arrizabalaga. Absolutely. As long as his fiance doesn't leave him.
And once she, well, let me say, not say once. If she ever does, and fingers crossed for him and them that she doesn't, just keep him in flipping goal. When they get married, man, we need to play him up front. He will score us a hat-trick every game. Honestly, it's going to be absolutely beautiful. It's going to be great. Aaron, similar for you. Are you going to stick with Kepa, or because it's Brentford, are you going to throw Mendy in?
Kepa just had the game of his life, so I think it's time to take him out and bring Mendy in.
You're not
No,
fooling me this time, Aaron.
Kepa's definitely earned his place after that Villa performance. I think he's got to stay in now until he puts in a performance worthy enough for him to be dropped. Until then, it's Kepa.
Absolutely, I do agree. Can only echo what the boys have said. Now, one other thing that Thomas Tuchel again. What is wrong with me? Graham Potter was talking about in the press conference, he was asked about Thiago Silva and kind of managing his minutes with his age and stuff. Because Graham Potter confirmed after the game on Sunday against Villa that Thiago felt a little bit of tightness in his hamstring after the game. Graham Potter did thankfully confirm today there's no injury to be talked about. It's just when someone's 38 years old, you need to manage their minutes a little bit and not overdo it for their body. So with that in mind, Aaron, do you think this one probably has to be one where Thiago Silva needs to get rested just so he's also fully fit by the time we play Man United on the weekend?
Yeah, no risks at all. I think we need the strongest possible team for United, and there's no point in playing Silva and risking him getting injured or aggravating that injury he's already got. I reckon the defenders we already have can do a job against Ivan Toney and Burmo, so I don't think we risk Thiago Silva.
Fair dues. Tom, similar question. Do we need to give Thiago Silva a rest? I mean, we shouldn't overdo it, and the next game is United, so kind of has to be tomorrow, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would rest him, and actually, I would play a back four tomorrow. Okay. Might mess up our predictor, so I will happily go with the 3 if that's what you guys are going to do. But yeah, I think he can't play. He's just, we don't want to ruin him. We want to enjoy every time he plays and not worry about his hamstring. So rest him. Let him hang out with Bell and his son in West London watching the game on TV.
You wouldn't even bring him in the squad. Okay, fair play. Because I was actually going to bring this up now. First, talk about Thiago Silva, and then on the basis of that we are now most likely resting him, or at least us 3 would. Do we then play a back 3, or do we then play a back 4? Because Tom kind of hinted towards it. How many players do we then have to play in the back 3? Because obviously Fofana's injured. Now we have Aspie, and Aspie could theoretically play right centre back. And then we have Koulibaly and Chalobah, but those 3 are kind of the only real ones, plus Marco Correa. But after how that went on Saturday, I don't really want to be playing him at left centre back, especially with the way Brentford played: long balls, high balls, set pieces, long throws. That's the last place where I want a 5'8" centre back. Like, don't want any of that. But also that the fact that they play with a front 2, even if it's not a flat front 2, it's like usually kind of Buemo, if I'm saying his name correctly, kind of running around Ivan Toney, isn't it? Or do they play a 3 up top? Am I getting something?
It's 4-3-3 they normally play.
But do they attack in that as well?
I'm
Let me take I could very much so be wrong. Maybe this is more from a memory of last season where I always felt like they usually had 2 up top. It seems like it's a 4-3-3 at the moment with Wissa on the left and Buemo on the right. Fair play.
Because he was playing a 3-5-2 when they first got into the Prem. And then
maybe that's what I had in my
head.
Then
when Ericsson came in, he moved to 4-3-3 and he's kept it since.
It seems like it is a 3. Well, that might lead me towards a back 4 a little bit more, in all honesty, but it certainly doesn't make me want to play Cucurella. Now, to be fair, I feel like Aspie last year, obviously we didn't have a great performance overall, but defensively we were good, even if we needed Mendy on a few occasions. I feel like Aspie had a surprisingly good game against Ivan Toney, even in a lot of aerial duels, which I was a little bit concerned about that ahead of the game. Then it turned out to be not as much of an issue as I expected it to be. But that is obviously basically a year ago, so we can't exactly just take that like for like into tomorrow. So, Aaron, I mean, Thomas kind of already said he would rather play a back 4. Would you also want to play a back 4 if we're going to play Thiago Silva, or would you stick to the 3?
Yeah, if we're going to rest Thiago Silva, I think it's back 4, because if you think about it, we won't have Silva, we won't have Fofana, so then that only leaves us with Koulibaly, Chalobah, Azpilicueta and Cucurella. And with the sort of aerial prowess that they have with Ivan Toney going up for set pieces, and just in general when they have corners, they've got quite a few taller players. I think it's having one of those playing as your wide centre back probably isn't a great idea. So I'd probably go with the 4 back.
Fair play. Now let's go through the midfield before we finalise on what actual formation we're then. Let's go through the defence, and then before we finalise what actual formation we're going to play. Just for the time being, I'll put it on screen as a 4-3-3, but that may well change. All right then. I mean, most of this is pretty much set in stone anyway. there's only a couple of questions that need to be answered. Now, if what we're going to do is the back four, we kind of have to pick Koulibaly and Chalobah as the two centre-backs, don't we, Tom? There's not really much of another option, unfortunately, at the moment, if we're going to rest Silva. Would you agree with it, yeah? Tom?
Yeah. Nobody else that can do it, really.
That is very true. You know what? Let's do it as a more whole, and I'll take the right back to you as well already, because obviously we're missing Reece James, unfortunately. Sad times. We don't really have a right back backup other than Aspie. Now, if we play wing backs, Loftus-Cheek becomes an option. Now, I would have also said maybe one of the forwards becomes an option, but against Villa, that most certainly didn't work. Doesn't mean it won't work every game, but maybe Brentford isn't the most suited to that idea either, if I'm honest. But now at right back, before we even get to left back, would you then just play Aspie there? Because at full-on right back, I don't really want to put Ruben there, if I'm honest.
Days like this, I wish we had Tino Livramento still at the club.
Or Lamptey, or any of them.
Or Lamptey. But yes, no, it would be. And actually, in my humble opinion, I think Aspie's been fine in a 4 whenever Tuchel tried it. And I think, I'd put him in there.
It's weird for me. Because obviously under Graham Potter against Wolves, he was very good. Even when he came on against Milan, he did a decent job at right wing back. For me, it's kind of, while you're right, actually, Tom, he wasn't bad in any of them. I just feel like he's not as bad because he just chooses to then not offer as much going forward, which is okay, but also does hinder us to some extent, right? Especially when we compare it to what we have when Reece James plays. But he needs to do it. Like, I understand it as well, because as a wing back, he has 3 behind him, then he can go forward and be involved. But if he only has 2 behind him, especially if that one behind him is only Chalobah on his side, then he just can't push forward as much. That's why I trust him more as a right centre-back in a back 3 than I do as a right back. But Tom still does make a fair point where it's like, well, whenever he was used, he did okay. Does he get beat one-on-one a few times too easily? Yes, but he's probably also better than Cucurella and Chilwell at trying to block crosses. And that's what Brentford are going to hurt us with the most. So if you can get involved in blocking some crosses, I'll take it, and you're probably going to have to do it. I'll get to Aaron, at the end once we've done the whole back four. So Tom, back to you. Unfortunately, Cucurella and Chilwell both had a real stinker on the weekend. Now, for me, Cucurella was worse, but Cucurella was worse because he played in a more dangerous position, being the left centre-back rather than the wing-back. And I think my personal opinion is that in a lot of people's minds, Chilwell was worse because he stayed on the pitch. And that's why even when he had problems in the second half, people remembered that, but they forgot the Cucurella, how bad he was in the first half. But still, both were really poor. So now the question is, who do you go with? Because now it's actually a different situation. If we had played a back 3, I would have said, okay, neither of them at centre-back, Cucurella at wing-back, because Chilwell had the chance at wing-back and was bad. Cucurella was bad at centre-back, so give him a chance at wing-back. But now that it's left-back rather than wing-back or centre-back, well, I guess both of them are kind of, it's a new chance, a slightly new position. So do you have much of a preference, Tom?
Yeah, no, for me, it's Chilwell. I mean, maybe I didn't see the reaction because I was at the game. From when I was watching, I thought Cucurella was considerably worse than Chilwell at the weekend. And I'm with you. He played a more dangerous position. I totally accept that. But for me, it has to be him, because I also think Cucurella was quite poor against Wolves in a 4, if I'm not mistaken. So in terms of Cucurella, maybe I'm being harsh, but I wouldn't. I don't think he gets in the team at the moment. Whether we try him further up the field, whether we give him a go at wing back in a back 3, maybe he's a lot better. But at the moment, I just think Chilwell's the only thing that would stop me playing Chilwell. Actually, is injury worries, and if there's concern over Chilwell's fitness, then maybe I would consider Cucurella at left back. But yeah, for me, it's Chilwell all the way. If, as I say, all things are equal.
Now, can you hear me, guys?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Because StreamYard showed me a notification. We're like, oh, your microphone was disconnected from your browser. I'm like, well, how's that happen then? StreamYard is clearly just having a bit of a weird day. All right, Chilwell. See, I'm struggling because remember when we played Wolves, and then obviously we made 7 changes, and everyone lost their minds when the formation came out. And then Graham Potter said, well, Chill, after the game, when he then in more detail explained the selection, he basically explained, okay, well, yeah, Chile is still recovering from an ACL injury, and now he's, we didn't want to play him 3 games in a row. If he plays again tomorrow, he will again play 3 games in a row. So, because obviously he started away at Milan, he started on the weekend, and then he would start again tomorrow. But at the same time, I still kind of agree that I don't really know. Because against Wolves on last weekend, while Cucurella was in a 4 at times, it was shifted kind of between the 3 and the 4 constantly, didn't it? Because he was kind of a left centre back with Pulisic that day playing left wing back, a bit like it was against Salzburg in that first game. And then obviously in possession, he basically pushed over as a normal left back because Pulisic pushed high up to be a left winger. I don't really know. I'd probably personally edge it for Cucurella. So I guess we put it back to you, Aaron, before we swing all the other way around to go through the back 4. Who would you pick between Chile and Cucurella?
For me, it's Cucurella, and I don't even think it's close. I think you guys have made it sound a lot closer than it is. I think when you think about the position that we're actually talking about here, we're talking about playing as a left back and a wing back. If we're playing as a left back, that's Cucurella all round. That's not Chilwell. Chilwell is, if we're a wing back, then Chilwell, fair enough, I can see that. But even then, Chilwell, just for me personally, Chilwell just doesn't look fit. I don't know what it is. He doesn't really look like he's obviously still recovering from injury, but he still doesn't really look like he's able to put in a sprint or go on a run or sort of play those quick balls and try and get balls in behind sort of thing. Like, he just doesn't look really like he's at the races for me personally. I don't know if you'd agree or not, but for me, I'd go Cucurella.
See, I do in general agree with that. I don't think it's necessarily a case of fitness. I think it's a trust in his own body and not having that full just sharpness back, which is totally understandable, by the way. Like, I'm not going to much hold that against Chilwell because every player has that after tearing their ACL. It's one of the worst injuries any footballer can suffer. But I do agree that he doesn't quite look there yet. At the same time, Cucurella, without an injury, looked equally as bad, if not worse, on Saturday. Now, again, slightly different position, but still, at least Chilwell has some sort of excuse for being struggling in certain games, right? Cucurella had no excuse, really, and was dreadful in every sense of the word. Like, his timing of pressing was awful. He was way too rash. He didn't seem to try hard enough to get back into position once he got himself out of position. Like, I was really unhappy with his performance, honestly. But I'd rather... my main reason for picking Cucurella is rather than I think he's better or whatever. I think after the last game, it can be either or. I just don't want to overdo it with Chile because I think recovering from an ACL injury, I'd always rather be safe than sorry. And I'm like, there's not much between them anyway, so what difference does it make? So I'm like, okay, then I'll pick Cucurella for that reason, basically.
I can get behind that. If it's for fitness reasons... I can get behind that, to be honest. Like, I completely understand. I'm definitely not in the extreme that Chilwell can't play left back. Because, I mean,
No, I even disagree with that statement that he can't do that.
But Leicester, he played left back. I mean, everybody said he couldn't play wing back when he first joined Chelsea. Really? So I'm not in that camp. But for fitness reasons, I will happily get behind you guys and just say, you know what, Cucurella is probably not the worst shout.
Fair dues. Sorry, Aaron, I had to mute you because sometimes there's weird background noises from your mic. I'm not sure if it's because you touched the mic, but I didn't want to be rude because I now have to actually go back to you anyway. Obviously, the centre back too. I mean, you can just quickly agree, but we don't really have another option anyway. But at right back, not that we have much of another option, but would you go for Aspi if we're playing this back 4?
Yeah, it has to be Azpilicueta, but that's purely out of necessity, not because I want him there. I think it's just because we don't have any of the options for right back. So if it was wing back, different conversation, but because it's right back, we don't really have any of the options.
Fair enough. I've just received a text that says, N'Golo had surgery, ? Did either of you know that N'Golo Kante supposedly had surgery?
Nope, I had no idea.
It's what the French media have been saying. I think it's the French
Chelsea
media.
have literally just released it 6 minutes ago. N'Golo Kante has undergone an operation on his hamstring and will be out for 4 months, according to Chelsea.
Jesus.
Well, that hamstring was well and truly screwed. Let me read out the statement, actually. Let me get it up on screen in a second.
4 months.
Yeah, 4 months. That's into February, mind you. That is a long ass time. Bloody hell.
He's definitely not getting that contract.
You know, the person that should be most upset is probably Didier Deschamps, because it's going to be a lot more difficult for France now. I mean, I think their pivots, it's going to be Shermaine.
I mean, they even had Kante at the Euros and still couldn't even beat Switzerland. So,
I guess the last World Cup was where he really sort of came. Him and Pogba in that pivot, wasn't it?
And Pogba is injured as well. France are going to be on the ropes.
What Shermaine? At least they have Shermaine. They've got Camavinga. Those guys are good, but they're young, you know. So suddenly they go from the best midfield to like just good young players, you know.
Absolutely. Let me get that article or that statement by Chelsea up. That's not much to it, but just to quickly go through it before we go back.
That's very, very quiet. I thought I saw it in the French press that they were considering him having an operation, but
absolutely, it must have been one bad hamstring injury. I do feel bad for him, as much as it also annoys me that he's injured so much. Chelsea Football Club has today released the following statement regarding N'Golo Kante. I mean, like you can see, it's very short. N'Golo Kante has undergone an operation on his hamstring injury. The midfielder visited a specialist with the club's medical department to explore the options for his rehabilitation approach, and it was mutually agreed for N'Golo to have surgery to repair the damage. Following a successful operation, N'Golo is now expected to be sidelined for 4 months. Well, that is a long-ass time. I mean, we've discussed it in the past on this channel, what we think about potential new contract and stuff, but it's not looking good, Brev. It really isn't, unfortunately. Aaron, do you want to comment on it quickly as well before we get back to the team?
No, it's all good, bro. It's all good, but I'll go head off now.
No problem. Aaron, appreciate you for popping in. Myself and Tom will finish off the lineups. Have a good day, bro, and we'll chat to you soon, man.
Appreciate it. I'll just give you a quick score prediction just so you can have it on record. I'll give it a 2-0.
2-0. All right, I'll take it.
Come back to this tomorrow.
I will come back to this. Either you'll get slaughtered or you'll get praised. One of the two.
Nice one, boys. Take care.
Here we are. Take care, bro. Tom, let's finish this off then. Especially if it's just us two, it will go a little bit quicker. Yeah. We decided on a back four. What exact formation within that back four would you like to see? Like, is it 4-3-3? Do you want to see a 4-2-3-1, 4-2-2-2? What would you like to see us go with?
So for me, it would be 4-3-3. But again, I'm not. Again, like you, I mean, I don't think there's too much difference.
Well, it's 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3. Yeah, I do hear you. Oh, what is StreamYard lagging with today? I think Tom's mic and camera might have frozen again, but maybe in a couple of seconds we'll be back. So I'll just keep talking in the meantime. I mean, you guys know my favorite formation is always the 4-3-3. I probably, just because of likelihood's sake, I will probably say 4-2-3-1. And I know this is our formation and not Graham Potter's, but I feel like if we want to be somewhat on the money, it's just more likely to pick it like this. I don't know. I mean, like Tom kind of hinted on, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Oh, Tom is back. Wonderful stuff. Let's see if it works now. So far, it's grey, but it might be back any second now. Hop on Clutch. Do you need I mean, you can obviously hop on Clutch if you've been having time to keep up with it as much as you wanted to recently. But let me send you the link. I will send you the link. I'm not sure if you heard what I said there, Tom, but as you can see on screen, I said just for realism's sake, because he hasn't done a normal 4-3-3 yet, has it? So I'm like, maybe we should pick 4-2-3-1. I don't know, man. Like, I'm happy to go 4-3-3 if you really want to.
Again, like you say, doesn't make all that much difference. And you know what? I think you're right. We haven't seen it very much from Graham Potter. So I think it's more who the three are is probably slightly more kind of, I don't say important, but probably is more important in terms of the game than how we set up. Because as you say, it changes seemingly every 10 minutes anyway. So yeah, no, I'm fine with that, mate.
Fair play. All right, let's pick the double pivot as such then. Obviously, in the last game, we started with, Loftus-Cheek and Mateo Kovacic. Even halfway through this first half, we changed it to put Ruben at wing-back, mountain midfield, because Sterling couldn't hack it at wing-back. But sure, that's what it is. Jorginho got a rest, got dropped, whichever way you want to word it. Came on and did okay, helped us see out the game. Would you then start him again on this one? I personally would, I was still shocked that Kovacic started again on the weekend, if I'm honest, because we know that he's playing with some sort of knee problem, and where there was even for him was also the possibility out there to potentially have him undergo surgery. So therefore, I'm like, don't overdo it again. I want him against Man United. I want him fresh. I want him sharp against Man United. So I would probably leave Kova out and therefore go Ruben and Jorginho. Would you go along with that as well, Tom, or would you like to see something different?
I would. I think my third choice will be slightly more controversial, though.
But third choice in terms of if it isn't these two, or third choice for the number 10?
No, third choice for the third midfielder.
Okay.
I mean, again, it's probably one where if I thought he would play, I would have probably actually put Zakaria in front of the back four, but he's not going to play. He's clearly not part of our plans. So I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, we have to disregard him. Like someone in the chat said at the very beginning, before people went live, like, "Oh, could Zakaria, play blah blah blah?" Potter's comment sounded promising. I'm like, did they? I'm not sure if we heard the same comments, because to me they didn't sound promising at all. Especially if you didn't read quotes but saw him say it. His facial expression while saying, "Oh, he's an important player to the squad," even if there's like eye movement where it's like, didn't even seem sure whether he should say it, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. We will actually touch on Zakaria news on that note in a second. But Clutch, first of all, thank you for jumping in on such a note. I appreciate you as always, as you know. I decided, I'm not sure if you heard all of that, but I said, yeah, let's just do 4-2-3-1 just because that's more likely. So let's see how that one goes. Would you pick 4-2-3-1? Would you really adamantly pick a 4-3-3? What's your shout, Clutch?
Probably a 4-2-3-1. Unless you want to rest Mount.
That's the next question.
Do you want to rest Mount and then try Havertz in a 10? I don't want to do that, so we're just going to leave Mount there.
Okay, fair enough. But would you pick Georgie and Ruben as well, or would you play Kova in there again?
Georgie and Ruben. Ruben's been playing very well, and we need to keep up that momentum.
Absolutely. And he did obviously get the rest against Milan anyway. So he should be fine to play this one as well. So that makes sense. Now, Tom, you hinted on already that your third midfielder shout, even if this is now kind of more as a number 10 compared to if it would be a 4-3-3. You did say that it would be a bit more of a rogue one. So who would it be, mate?
So, yeah, I heard Mount and Havertz is neither. I probably would play Havertz further forward. For me, it would be Kante Schwemke. I think we have a problem with getting up for midweek games and really being up for it. And I think just in light of the way where the squad is at the moment, I would throw him in. I think, again, if you put him just ahead of Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek as well, and this was very much you guys, I think he'll come in. It'll be his everything. I would give him a go. I really
would
think.
Would you pick him over Gallagher, though? Or would you play Gallagher in a different position?
Oh, goodness me. Oh, you're right.
You could play Gallagher, obviously, here. But
I would have probably, well, now I see it. I think to myself, if it were me, would I be tempted to play Gallagher further back? But no, and Jay, I see your comment. Kante isn't really a cam, which is why I was going down a 4-3-3.
But he is more of a 8-10. He's more of a 10 than he's a 6, that's for sure.
He is. Oh, this is the thing. I forget that Gallagher's in there too. And I love Conor Gallagher. Like, please don't think that I'm discarding him. I always get this on Twitter. If I don't pick someone, I somehow hate them.
Yeah.
Oh, now part of me
people think I hate everyone.
that's what happens when you're a content creator, mate. But for me, I really thought this could be a good one for Kante, particularly after the kind of league. Maybe I would put Gallagher, but then if I was to play Gallagher, I would put him as an 8. I wouldn't even think about putting him as 10. So then I probably would play Mount if I played Gallagher. But again, I will very much accede to you guys on that.
Fair dues. Yeah, it's a weird one with Gallagher because Gallagher's played a lot of different positions under Graham Potter. Obviously, when he came on at Milan for Mason Mount at halftime, he played on the right of the front three in a 3-4-3. When he came on the other week, he played not the other week, on Sunday. He came on instead of Aubameyang and then played as a kind of 10 behind Sterling as a striker. And then in one game, he played as a second striker next to Aubameyang. Obviously, more so in defensive shape when we didn't fold back into a 4-4-2 defensive shape. And then once we get the ball, we kind of spread out a little bit. But I think the big question that we need to answer before we decide, is it Gallagher, is it Matt Chukwuemeka or anybody else? Does Mount start? Would you rest him, Tom? I might probably rest him, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think there's also another thing, another debate to be had, that with the World Cup coming up, are the players that are going to definitely be in the World Cup, are they going to just play at 90% to prevent injury? I'm not saying Mason Mount
not, especially the academy ones. I bloody hope not.
No. Mason Mount wouldn't do that, and I would never say Mount would. But I'm looking at other players, other people on the pitch. Someone said it during Villa, again, not specific to a particular player. And it's another one where, with the World Cup coming up, nasty little midweek Prem game. Is it one for Mount? I don't think so, actually. But again, I'm not saying it's because he's not trying, but maybe no. Again, I'm with you, mate. I think not really. I wouldn't play him. No. Bring him on by all means if we're 1-0 down.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, mate, that's probably also my perspective. I know Clutch said maybe just leave him in there, but to me, he's the only outfield player that has started every game on the Graham Potter on the weekend until now. Sorry, he did start again on the weekend, even though he did have to have a scan on a bruise that he suffered in Milan to even play in the game on Sunday. In the end, he started. In the end, he played the full 90. In the end, he was the guy that won us the game. But we don't want to ruin Mount. What in this crucial period of the season where we're already missing Reece James, we're already missing, N'Golo Kante, we're already playing with a slightly injured Mateo Kovacic. We don't want to be in that situation, do we? But also at the very same time, it's also very, let's say, suboptimal to have to rest Mount and Thiago Silva in the same game. That is also not ideal. Hence why I probably would have rested one of the two on the weekend. Now, if it was Mount, we probably wouldn't have won. So in hindsight, obviously, great decision not to have done that. But I always try to keep as close to the strongest team as we have, and the ones that need rest, you rest them each at one occasion rather than all at the same time. Now, I know we did it against Wolves and it worked wonders and we won 3-0 anyway, but I feel like it doesn't always go that way. So I would probably put Gallagher in there, Clutch. Now that you've heard us speak about this Mount situation, would you potentially change your mind and rest him, or would you stick to it and keep him in the team?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Gallagher's a 10. I don't think he'd work there. I don't think his passing range right now. The problem I'm having is who's going to play in that player 10 position.
Yeah, that is a problem. Absolutely, that is a problem. Yeah,
because it's not going to be Havertz.
Well, it might be Havertz, even though it shouldn't be, but it might be.
No, it's not going to be Havertz for me. Havertz is going to be on the bench. That's where he belongs for a while.
4-3.
Same with Sterling, if I'm being honest with you. But Sterling has more of a chance to get on in that 10 position than Havertz does. I'm just trying to decide if I want Sterling or Gallagher there. You know what? Screw it. We'll put Gallagher at 7, and I'll do Sterling at 10.
Okay. I'd have said something to that, just as a thought. And again, tear me apart if you like. In terms of the 10, actually, Clutch, I like what you said about Sterling.
Are you talking actual 10 or where it says player 10 here?
No. A number 10. I'm not saying no. And actually, I'm with you guys. I would say probably will be Gallagher, but
switch around, make it easier.
Given that Sterling's not been kind of on his top form for a couple of games, maybe it's not a bad thing to just give him a slightly more free role behind the striker, because we know what he's like when he gets those runs in behind, when he's at the end of those crosses, to just give him a more central role, but with a striker might not be the worst idea. As I say, I don't think it will happen, and I think it probably will be Gallagher, and I think Gallagher deserves a start. But just a little thought out there.
It's a weird one. Now, I know Clutch is very unhappy when I say this. I would probably pick Kai here. I know I said already Gallagher, but then I realized, okay, but who do I then play here? Because I think Sterling needs to be benched. I think.
And then you're going to put Brozier up top, aren't you?
Or stick to Aubameyang, because, well, he came off reasonably early last game. He got the rest against Wolves. Like, I would love to see Brozier start, but I'm okay if it's Aubameyang again, if that makes sense. Because Havertz up top, sure, but last week or on the weekend, we were forced to see Havertz in basically this position behind, like in the front three, this inside 10 on the left. Where I'm like, stop playing him there. He's never worked there. He will never work there. Stop putting him there. And I'm like, okay, we've also seen him up top enough now. He will probably do a reasonable job, but at the same time, people will start slating him because he'll probably miss a chance or a touch or whatever. I'm like, let's do something which we haven't seen that often from him. And that's why I play him there. Only on the basis of, well, will we play Hakim Ziyech? Seems like he's almost as heavily involved in the plans as Zakaria is, so unlikely. So that allows us to put Havertz here. And I know Gallagher obviously isn't the right player at all. And this is my only problem with the fullback, because we don't have enough wingers. So unless we play Sterling and Pulisic, but I also want to put Pulisic on the bench, Sterling on the bench, I don't know what to flip and do. So it even brings me back to, do I want Gallagher here and just play Sterling and Pulisic? I don't know, man. I don't know. And you know what? I think two of you kind of in the end went for Gallagher here, so let's do that, even though I would probably shout for Kai. And let's move on to the 9 and leave the what's player 7 here until in a minute, because we just need to figure that one out. Tom, would you go for Christian Pulisic? Do you think he warrants another start? I mean, he had to start against Wolves and then was an unused sub for 2 games in a row, which I felt very harsh.
Yeah, I'm not Christian Pulisic's biggest fan, to be honest. I mean, I think, from what you hear from the books being released, it's not for me the most professional behaviour from a player. And I don't necessarily all think it's his fault. So I'm not going to pile on him. But yes, no, I do think he deserves a start, even if, as I say, do I want him at the club long term? Possibly not. But no, I think he does. I think it was good against Wolves. Even if I have this thing with Pulisic that you give him, he takes about 3 good chances to get going, and then he's really good. But sometimes you'll give him 2 good chances, and that's all you're going to get in the game. And that's all I fear with Pulisic, that it takes him a bit too long to get going. But, I think he deserves it. I think Sterling needs a rest, to be honest with you. So, yeah, do you know what? Pulisic starts on the left for me.
Fair dues. I mean, Clutch, I assume you're going to say Pulisic as well. But how would you explain it?
Sterling's been bad. Pulisic has not had a chance since he scored a goal. So not much more to be said. Sterling doesn't deserve a start. Sorry. He looks like he can't be bothered lately. Like, there's just things that he's doing that I'm just like, okay, he can't complete a dribble. His shots are way off target, and except the one at the bar. It's not working for Sterling at the moment. He needs to realize he is also somebody who can be benched. So that's why I'd say if Pulisic goes out there and scores, Sterling might have to worry a little bit, but he's not going to, because they're not going to stop playing Sterling. But Sterling does need to worry a little bit, because if we get into this mode where Sterling is just absolutely comfortable with starting, that he doesn't have to fight for a place because he's Raheem Sterling, then that's going to be a trouble, because he's not going to play at his top form. And maybe it is the World Cup. I don't know. I mean, a lot of these players are probably having that in the back of their mind. Like, you're never going to change that. That's just how it is. Every player who's going to go to the World Cup, whether it be Pulisic, whether it be Sterling, whether it be Koulibaly, it doesn't matter who they are. They're going to think about it. That's just how it is. That's life. The most important tournament, most of these people are the World Cup. That's just how it is. I mean, they represent their country. That's how it is. So unfortunately, that sometimes you have to do things in order to boost these confidence for some of these players, for they're willing to fight for the club. Pulisic had a very tough time with Thomas Tuchel. Nobody can deny that. And was that book the greatest thing in the world for him to write? Probably not. But at the end of the day, he said how he felt. Like, you either hold it against him or you get over it at the end of the day.
I'm not sure if I've spoken to you about this, Clutch, because obviously you haven't been on that many streams as of late. But my perspective on this whole Pulisic thing, and also him saying this about Tuchel, once you write a book, say this, because if something like this is the case, then you have to say it if you're writing a book. The question I have is, don't write a book, man. Like, you're 24. You don't need to be writing a book yet. I mean, especially just before the World Cup. Imagine you do well at the World Cup. It makes your whole book pointless, because your book will get way more interesting if you have a good World Cup. Do you know what I mean? So why now? I don't get it.
Here's the thing. Pulisic has a lot of people walking around him that are giving him this information. Basically, whether it be his agent, his father, it doesn't matter. He over here, I know people, you guys might understand because of all the stands that come after you on Twitter when you even slightly do something negative towards him. He's a very big deal within the space of football, soccer. He's very big. He is the biggest thing that this country has. And you got to understand, from this country's perspective, we don't have a lot to go for this sport. This has not been our sport. Now, if you go to basketball, you go to baseball, generally we're the top teams, even American football. Like, that's just American culture. We want to be the top. And Pulisic is about the best player that the United States has, and kids look up to him. Like, the one thing that people want when it comes to Pulisic is, the reason why he even wrote this book is because there are a lot of young kids looking up to him, and they're trying to gain.
Nothing your manager the way to act.
No. But here's the thing: from his perspective, he felt like he was treated unfairly, right? Why is that wrong? Like, maybe it's unprofessional. I would give you that.
Absolutely nothing wrong with feeling that. I just don't see, like, how many other players write a book at 24. Like, you say he's the biggest star. It's true, but Messi is the biggest star in Argentina. Still didn't write a book at 24.
Yeah, but who was before Messi? Diego Maradona.
Yeah.
United States has never had that. Pulisic is the biggest star. It doesn't matter who like, you could say Landon Donovan, you could say Clint
Dempsey. He's not a bigger star than like Clint Dempsey.
He's not a big star.
He is a bigger star here.
Yeah, but he's not achieved more than them, though.
No, not yet. But that's the point.
I mean, he won a Champions League with us, obviously, but
and who else has won a Champions League?
No, of course,
that's the point. Like, he has the most. It's kind of like when people look at. I can't use that because it's an American football reference. It's when you look at this, Pulisic is the best chance, the best potential for this country. So a lot of people use that. They use that as their hope. And is that right or wrong? That's up to them. I don't really care.
That's got nothing to do with whether he writes a book or not, whether they think he's the best.
Yeah, but the kids that the United States, and this is probably a lot of has to come with the United States Soccer Federation as well, has probably went to Pulisic, write a book. We need you to talk about this because we want to grow the sport. And that's one way they're going to do it.
And I also understand that he will do well, like, monetarily. My only thinking is, if he ever is to leave Chelsea, will other clubs be like, oh yeah, but he might write a random book and slate the ex-manager, or who knows, the current manager, if he ever writes a book again, who knows? Like, is that ideal for his own professional career? Those few bucks that he makes with selling that book, I don't think it's worth.
But I think that club will also look at the profit margin that he brings. You're bringing an entirely new fan base, an entirely new country, pretty much, towards your fan base. I mean, that's the reason why Chelsea signed him in the first place. It had nothing to do with his skill. Let's be real. Because at Dortmund, at the final days of Dortmund, he was on the bench. He was not that great. So why did we buy him? It was because he had the American potential. Chelsea's seen that this kid had American
potential without knowing he could write a book and flag the manager off.
Personally,
I'm not saying
I think Giovanni Reyna is going to be a better player than Pulisic. But
of course, it won't turn everyone off. But I'm like, it will still be like, when you weigh up as a new club potentially, when you weigh up, is it worth getting him or not? Then you still weigh this up as a potential negative. Where I'm like, don't do this to yourself. But let's not get stuck too long on this, because Tom needs to head out in a second. So let's finish up this team quickly. Tom, on your end, who would you then play on the other side? Because now that we've put Gallagher here and Pulisic there, and even though we were talking about Sterling probably should get dropped, does he still need to play here? Because who else plays there?
Oh, this is horrible. Like, we've been boxed into a corner here. Oh, goodness me. Because, I mean, Havertz doesn't really play on the right, does he? From memory.
Yeah. I mean, in a 3-4-3 he does, but not in
it's
a 4-3.
It's not really what you want. And Ziyech, I don't want anywhere near the team, to be honest. Oh, goodness me. This is horrible. Yeah, you're right. I mean, is Sterling, for me, as I said, I would have actually given Kante a go, and then maybe I would put Gallagher on the right. But based off of what we've said, maybe it does have to be.
Mount just needs to play anyway.
Mount.
Well, whenever you give Mount a rest for a game, he seems to come back terrible. So
that is also a shout, yeah. The problem is that he had to play the full 90 in the weekend. Like, if he at least came off after like an hour or 7 minutes.
I don't even think he had to. They just wanted him to because he was on a hat trick.
But what minute did he even score his second goal?
Like the 60th minute? 50th minute?
Wasn't it?
Oh, was it that early? But we had already at that point made like 3 of the subs, right? By the time he scored that goal. So
I'll tell you what, lads, to both of you, in terms of how I'm thinking with this team. And again, I'm not saying it's the players' fault with the World Cup coming up and the fact we're generally bad in midweek Prem games. My fear is that some of the guys going to the World Cup maybe just won't quite play at 100%. And I don't think it's deliberate, but I think they're going to try, not to get injured. And that's why I'm not blaming Mount at all. I could say the same for almost any player here. And actually, as Clutch was basically saying, I think it probably applies for Pulisic probably more than anybody else in this team. Oh, this is the sort of game where it's just so difficult to pick a team because you just want players that are up for it,
And at the same time, you want to rest players, and you're like, who can we rest?
Players.
It's difficult because at the same time, Sterling probably could also do with a rest. I know he got the rest against Wolves, which Mount didn't, but still, he can probably still do with one, even if it's outside of form. So,
or do we play him into form though? There's that talk that a player as good as him, you play him into form.
True, but no matter who you are, everyone has a bit of a limit with how many games you can play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know what? Because I think I really want to give Mount a rest. Even though I don't want to see Sterling play again, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I'll just pick Sterling. Just because I'm like, Mount's rest is currently more important to me than dropping Sterling. Because I'm like, okay, well, I just, because Mount is, with the way things are going at the moment, Mount is more important than Sterling in the grand scheme of things. So I'm like, okay, I'd rather make sure Mount is fine than, as long as Pulisic gets a chance at least, which I think he very much deserves, then okay, play Sterling on the other side. Then maybe he, bounces back and already plays better. Would you be okay with that, Tom? Putting Sterling there?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, lack of options, but yes.
There you go. Clutch then. If Pulisic is on the left, Gallagher is as a 10, who would you put in the right? Would you go along with it? Just you're almost forced into putting Sterling, or would you throw a Siege in there? Would you throw a Broja on the wing, or a Aubameyang on the wing, or a Havertz on the wing in there? What would you do?
Probably Sterling, if I'm being honest with you.
It is unfortunately probably the best choice. Klaus, I'll stick with you. Up top then. Aubameyang again, Broja, Havertz, even though you just said earlier he shouldn't be playing, so probably not him. But do you think Aubameyang should get a rest as well? That's where we're getting to the point where I'm like, are we not resting too many players now? But at the same time, do I maybe think that Broja would actually be better suited to playing against Brentford? Do you know what I mean? With Broja being strong and so aggressive and stuff. Maybe that's exactly the kind of thing that we need rather than Aubameyang against Brentford. What do you think, Clutch?
My only thing is Pulisic and Aubameyang have a lot of chemistry together, and I think they would work well together. Because they always worked well when they were at Dortmund together.
Great point.
Yeah, I'm going to go Aubameyang. I'm also reading parts of Pulisic's book.
Fair enough.
Great point.
What did someone say about Fabrizio Romano, and especially someone that it's nearly called Fabrizio Romano? But anyway, you're going to go for Aubameyang. Tom, are you also going to go for Aubameyang?
No, I would have probably given him a rest for midweek. Although, as I know, it completely overplays what I've just been saying. I would have said Kai, but to be honest, Aubameyang's been in such good form, other than Villa, that I have no problem at all with him being in the team.
Okay. Any shout for Broja at all from your end?
I love it, and I really want to see him play. And if it were up to me, I'd start him, but I just don't think it's going to happen. So,
I do agree. I mean, I'll throw Broja in as my shout, but we'll stick with Aubameyang on the screen, and we need to round this one out. So just very quickly, from both of you guys, I'll start with you, Tom. Score prediction. Aaron gave us a 2-0. Are you as confident as Aaron was?
1-1. And that's if we're lucky.
Ooh, Clutch. Are you more confident than Tom is?
3-0.
3-0? 2-0. Sorry. That's what I'm here for, though.
I said 3.
3.
I said 3.
Well, it's hopefully to us.
I need a little bit of optimism in my life. Let me have it.
There you go. Give Clutch some optimism. Come on, Chels. There you go. See, I will... no, what did I say on the weekend? I said 3-1, and we won 2-0. All right. So I will say... You know what? Maybe, because I am quite negative out of this game, so I'm not really sure if I want to talk the positivity into me or if I want to be completely transparent. Transparent would be hopefully we scrape a 2-1, and the I can't talk. talking it into existence. Maybe I'll shout 4-1. Nah, I'll go 2-1. I'll go 2-1 and hope we get the dub. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round this one out. Please do check out Tom's Twitter. I'm not sure if you wanted me to link anything else, but I did link your Twitter down in the description. Please do follow Tom on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. Check out Aaron as well. I haven't put Clutch in there because I didn't expect him to come on, but, just Twitter search Clutch CFC, so then you'll find it. So please do follow Clutch as well. Subscribe if you haven't already. We massively appreciate that, of course. Smash the like button on your way out. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.